You're listening to the Airline Pilot Guy Show.
The view from our side of the cockpit door.
WAPG, it's the Airline Pilot Guy.
Airline Pilot Guy, episode 645.
Yeah, he's up in the sky. It's the Airline Pilot Guy.
Hello, you're listening to the Airline Pilot Guy Show, the view from our side of the cockpit door, with your host, Captain Jeff, broadcasting live from the APG Road Vessel Studio. Today's show is recorded on the first week of the new year, 2025.
Yeah, he's up in the sky. It's the Airline Pilot Guy. It's your light and it's flying by. With the Airline Pilot Guy.
In today's episode, a flight skids while landing in South Korea, coming to a fiery end. Did Russian missiles take down an Azerbaijani flight? Also ahead, more news and your feedback. So get all settled in. Tray tables and seat backs in the upright and locked positions. Electronic devices powered on. I'm Radio Roger, and Flight 645 is ready for pushback.
Happy New Year! Thank you, Radio Roger. He's an award-winning TV and radio reporter, currently at the number one all-news station in the nation, 1010 Wins on 92.3 FM in Captain Nick's intro.
New York City!
There we go. All right. This is the way to start off the year on a good foot. Isn't it?
Special.
All right. Welcome to the Airline Pilot Guy Show. It's an aviation podcast covering the latest in aviation news and answering your great feedback. I'm Captain Jeff, a former U.S. Air Force pilot and retired Delta Airlines captain. And joining me today from his studio,
in Hartford, Hereford, and Hampshire,
pensioned off photographer, former RAF, RAAF fighter pilot, retired Airbus A330, A340 captain for Virgin Atlantic Airways. It's Captain Nick.
Hi there, Jeff, and hi, everybody. Welcome to 2025. Nice to see a couple of American aircraft sporting our show number, N645. The first was a 1927 Curtiss Jenny, then one for Nick, a Douglas C-47B Skytrain, and finally a 1981 Wicker Roy MA5 Charger. Never heard of that before.
I think you're just making this stuff up. That's what I think.
Well, of course I am.
Okay, I'm sorry. Shouldn't have said it. Okay. Well, thank you. That was very informative. Also joining us from his remote studio in South, he's a race car driver, high-performance, high-altitude, tail-dragging, and complex endorsed instrument-rated pilot with an affinity for self-taught haute cuisine and anything with enough horsepower to kill him. It's AJ Schramm.
Hey, everybody. I'm really glad to be back. Good to see you guys. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you. Have you ever had anybody pronounce your name Schramm before?
I get Scram a lot, and usually I just leave.
Really?
Yeah, I just leave.
Okay. Don't anybody say that then, because we want him to stay for the whole show. And also,
Hey, AJ, quick question. If you fell off a horse and died, you'd have been killed by 1 horsepower. That would be a bit demeaning.
I don't discriminate.
You know, he never ends with the 1 horsepower jokes when you're on the show. You can always look forward to that. Okay. And also joining us from her studio in Toronto, Ontario, Canada, retired financier and aviation enthusiast, spreadsheet master, and our producer. It's the lovely Liz Piper.
Hi, everybody. As everybody said, welcome to 2025.
Whether you like it or not,
Yep,
we're still here. Joke's on you. and here we go. You know, we still haven't been kicked off the podcast space. I don't know how we haven't been, but we're still here.
I keep getting out. You guys keep dragging me back in.
I know. Well, we need ratings, man. So we bring you in. You're a car wreck, and we need all the
Can you hear me
attention.
in Unity? Yeah.
I can hear you, Liz. Yes.
Good.
But our video audience cannot. And maybe some of the people that are listening to the audio podcast can hear you. Say hi to them, Liz.
Hello, everybody on the audio podcast.
There you go. See the way we have this set up. By the way, if you're listening to the audio only podcast, we don't say. I don't say this enough. When we're recording the show, we're using the video as a platform. And if you want to check us out and see why we have faces for radio, you can go to airlinepilotguy.com/YouTube. And you can see us, or you can just go to youtube.com/airlinepilotguy. Either one works. And so we use that as a platform. And when we're recording the show, we can hear, the panelists here can hear Liz in the background, but the people that are watching the show, or the video actually, whether it's live or recorded, they cannot. So
And that's the way we like it.
That's the way we like it.
It's better than having a voice for silent movies.
Yeah. And
unfortunately, we don't have much news this week, so,
Yeah. Well, okay, I get it. That she's already given me a bad time about not getting right into the news. So here we go.
Stand by for news.
All right. Well, we're going to start off with, we have a couple of tragedies, big accidents and loss of life on our show. And that's just the wrong way, really, to start off the new year. But we have to, because that's what we do here. We talk about
some tragedy here on the
all
show,
things
too.
good and bad. And thank you, Liz, for, am I on the list of tragedies?
You're getting there.
The fact that I'm still
Behave.
alive. Yes, ma'am.
Just behave.
Okay. I'm sorry. And so we're going to start off with this first one, which is an Azerbaijani Embraer ERJ-190, registration 4 Kilo Alpha Zulu 65. They were performing flight 8243 from Baku, Azerbaijan, to which is a really good. I like that F1 race. That's one of those venues that the F1 car racing world uses as a venue, and it's a beautiful city. Anyway, they were flying from there to Grozny, Russia, with 62 passengers and 5 crew. They had diverted from Grozny to Aktau, Kazakhstan. I'm not sure if that's right or not, due to weather. Not sure if that's really why. Subsequently attempted to divert to Machakala. Thank you. I got it. Here we go. And but aborted the approach to Makahatahaha due to fog before diverting to Aktau, where the aircraft attempted to an emergency landing on runway 11 about 1 hour after the aborted approach to Grozny. The aircraft was turning onto final approach with gear down, but lost height, impacted the ground off the runway in a near landing, but nose down attitude, and caught fire. Rescue services were able to rescue 29 people, which I think is a minor miracle if you were going to watch the video of the crash here. Let's see. So 29 people, including all cabin crew, alive. 38 bodies, including both pilots, were recovered. Okay, so let's and one thing that was the very first issuance of the incident, the accident on the Aviation Herald, and at that point there were some rumors that this may be more than just your typical accident, and so then it was shortly thereafter confirmed by some quite a bit of confirming evidence. Looking at Liz is showing that right now on the video. Some holes in the skin of the aircraft, centering around the tail region of the aircraft, and they're thinking that somehow, or not somehow, it's obvious how the hydraulics on the aircraft were significantly affected. And so we're going to play a little video here of the crew trying to fly the airplane with a very, very degenerated flight control system, or almost non-existent system. It kind of reminds us of what was the United 232, I think, in Sioux City, Iowa.
Yep.
That lost
Do
hydraulics.
you want me to add the video?
Yeah, please add the video, Liz, and I will hopefully do what I have to do to get it to play. There we go. So we're watching this now. There's kind of a steep descent angle, although it's kind of, I'm not sure if the guy's holding the phone exactly right, because you're looking at the clouds. I don't think it's as steep as it appears, actually, now that we see some ground. The fact that the horizon's not level. But the airplane is clearly kind of doing some up and down maneuvers, like they're trying to control the pitch of the aircraft, and we believe they were trying to control it just using engine thrust, putting thrust on, taking thrust off. Looks like they were able to bank the aircraft using some kind of residual controls, and then they're shooting for that runway, but they missed it, and there's the crash right there. And as I said, it is, I think, a minor miracle to me that I guess the tail section broke off, and I think all the survivors of the crash were located in the back half of the aircraft that separated from the aircraft. And yeah, that is it's pretty amazing. So we're seeing some footage now of the wreckage on the ground, the aftermath. And so it turns out that people have said that there was some kind of drone activity going on in the Grozny area, the destination for the flight. I believe, was it Grozny, or was it one of the diversion airports that they were having drone activity? I can't remember now.
I think it was Grozny.
Was it
It was
Grozny?
Grozny.
But it was one of the Russian locations, I believe, where Russian anti-aircraft, Russian anti-drone defenses were employed, and that is what affected the Azerbaijani flight. So if you guys want to ring in with anything, please do.
Yeah, well, having seen pictures of the damage that was caused to the tail of the aircraft, and we're pretty certain it was not damage that occurred during the crash, but that looks typically like a shrapnel damage from the warhead of a Grounder missile. Different sized holes, and just punched straight through the airframe. That combined with a sort of apology by the Russian president that has occurred since then, when he called it a tragic incident that took place in Russian airspace, and he apologized for the crash of the aircraft, but he didn't explicitly acknowledge that it was Russia's responsibility. So that's been left vaguely open. I think those of us who have seen what evidence there is available think back to the Malaysian 777 crash, when that aircraft was shot down by Soviet forces that were taking part in the invasion of
Ukraine,
and that itself was an appalling incident, for which they've had a court case effectively in The Hague, and attributed that definitely to a Russian air defense missiles fired, they believe, by Russian forces who had moved into Ukrainian territory. Anyway, so it looks very similar to that, and I think we're not gonna see any definitive evidence other than what you can glean from the aircraft. and I can't see Russia being really open about what happened. But you never know, we might get lucky. When you look at the flight path it took across the ocean trying to get to Aktau Airport, they were obviously having dreadful trouble controlling the aircraft. It meanders in an appallingly difficult flight path, as I suspect the crews were struggling with the control of the aircraft. We've seen aircraft, like you mentioned, Jeff, the DC-10 at Sioux City, that did a fantastically brave effort to land the aircraft without any hydraulics at all. And of course, you need hydraulics on most of these aircraft to control them. There was also an A300, an Airbus A300 that was hit by a missile. I think that was in Afghanistan, if I'm right, that successfully, despite the fact they even had a wing on fire, they successfully landed the aircraft. All the crew, it was a cargo aircraft, so there weren't any passengers. The crew survived, and indeed they patched the aircraft up and got it airworthy again, and were trying to sell it. So they that particular crew did a marvelous job. But like this aircraft, there was also a 747 in Japan that suffered a complete hydraulic failure, and after a tragic 45 minutes of meandering flight path, the crew finally hit some high ground. They couldn't get the nose back up. What you can do to control an aircraft, assuming you've got a twin-engine airplane, got an under-wing pods, you can just alter the thrust. And if you put thrust on, then you'll tend to make the aircraft pitch up. If you take thrust off, the opposite occurs. And of course, by putting uneven thrust onto the engines, you can effectively bank it. But you're right, by the look of the amount of maneuvering that they were doing in that last bit of video, it's possible that they actually had some hydraulic control of the ailerons and or perhaps the spoilers, and were able to bank the aircraft reasonably well, which is also very good, because if you get the nose too high in this situation, you can put bank on, which has a tendency to let the nose drop. So, it gives you a little more control. But no, they struggled and struggled for a considerable length of time. And of course, very sadly, the heroes, I'm going to call them that, in the flight deck were part of the casualty list, and as they perished when they eventually hit the ground. But they did a pretty good job of cushioning the impact to allow so many people get out of the wreckage alive.
I think it's incredible that anybody walked away.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah,
right?
indeed.
I mean, look at
Absolutely.
that piece of the aircraft there on the ground we're watching on the video here, and which we'll have in the show notes. It's just like, wow, that must have been a wild ride, before the crash, and then the crash itself and the aftermath there. But thank goodness everybody didn't perish in it.
Indeed. Ihol Boxes in the chat room reminds me it was an A300B, a freighter that was out of Baghdad.
Okay. When you first said the A300, I'm thinking, oh, you mean the one that the U.S. Navy shot down, the Iranian over the... Yeah. Well, no, don't mention that one. They didn't get to use that one again.
No, they didn't. No.
Okay.
Oh, we've got a first-time listener in the chat room.
We have a live... We're recording this live on YouTube, and we have a live audience, our live chat room, every week that we record, except for we took a week off at the end of the year. And this is Team MM3. Hi, live chat, folks. First time actually catching a show live. Woo! All right. So
They're not live. They're just bots. Don't worry about that. Team
okay.
MM3.
We have a bot named Team MM3. Yay.
Welcome to
No. Everyone else is bots. He's the only live
bots.
bloke here.
Okay.
Wait, we let someone live then? Ooh.
Yeah, we're not very...
we talked about that.
Could create a lot of confusion having a real person in the chat room.
Yeah. We're not very discriminating as far as people that we let in the chat room. Just saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, welcome to our
Yes, welcome
chat.
to our show, our live recording. And
I guess that's about it for that.
I guess that's
first
about it
item.
for the Azerbaijan thing until we learn any more information. But it seems pretty clear now that everybody has decided that it was brought down by anti-aircraft fire. All right. Here's the other, well, actually, it's not the only other piece of sad news, but this is another tragedy with a large loss of life. And this is the South Korean low-cost airline Jeju, Boeing 737-800, registration Hotel Lima 8088, performing flight 2216 from Bangkok, Thailand, to Muan, South Korea. 175 passengers and 6 crew. Landed on Muan's runway 19 at about 9:03 local time with all gear up, overran the runway, sliding on the fuselage and engines, impacted a concrete embankment about 300 meters or 1,000 feet past the runway end. Actually, I don't think that's right. I think it was, well, it may have been, past the runway end and burst into a fireball. 2 people have been rescued alive. 120 bodies have been recovered. There are no hopes for more survivors. So they since this initial report of the accident, they've the only 2 survivors. There were only 2 survivors, and those 2 were cabin crew sitting in the tail section, the aft jump seat area of the aircraft. I believe the male cabin attendant was flung free or clear of the wreckage and had pretty significant injuries. And I think the female survivor was still located within the tail section, and they were able to rescue her from it. And from what I recall, she had very, very few injuries, nothing really significant or serious, which is amazing, actually. Especially when you watch this video. And have I lost the presentation? Oh, I have. But since I'm looking for that movie to play,
somebody else is here.
It looks like we have somebody that just arrived. And there she is, Dr. Steph. Hello, Dr. Steph.
Hi there. Good to see you all.
Yeah, great to see
Glad
you. Happy New Year.
Finally make it after work. Happy New Year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great. So we're in the middle of...
No idea what you guys are talking about, but I will catch up momentarily. And
Neither do we.
Okay,
yeah, well,
perfect.
we don't, obviously. But we're in the middle of the second news item, of B, the South Korea crash. And I was just about to share my keynote presentation with the movie embedded. And Liz, if you'll put that on the...
Here it comes.
Okay. And I'm going to hit this button right here and see, we can see the point at which the 737 touched down on the runway, quite far down the runway, after having experienced some ground effect. They were at very high speed. And if you're sensitive about seeing bad things happen, then avert your eyes if you're watching the video. Sliding down, looks like the number 2 thrust reverser is open. And then they hit the berm with the localizer antenna array. And basically the airplane just stopped and disintegrated. And as I said, that's why I'd say it's quite a miracle that anybody survived that. 2 cabin crew managed to survive.
Well, that and the fire, too.
Yeah. All right, so that is all we need to play, I think. And, all right, so let's see. Let's talk about the sequence of events here. They were coming in from Thailand, Bangkok, about a 4.5-hour flight, I believe. They were on final approach for runway 1 at this airport, Muan, the opposite direction that they actually ended up landing and crashing. And at some point, there was an advisory from Tower, which is not really all that uncommon for airline pilots, or actually all pilots out there, to hear the Tower broadcast caution bird activity. and we talk about it, all the time, being on the NOTAMs and on the ATIS, Automatic Terminal Information Service, talking about bird activity and that kind of thing. Liz is showing an image of the bird feeding and migratory areas around this airport. It's located right on the ocean, so there's a lot of bird activity, maybe even more than your normal airport. So the sequence here at 8:54, Muan Airport Air Traffic Control cleared the aircraft to land on runway 1. And then they broadcast the caution bird activity advisory 3 minutes later. 2 minutes after that, Flight 2216 pilot reports bird strike, and they declared emergency, Mayday, 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 bird strike, go around. Okay, so clearly they had a bird strike. There's another video which I haven't downloaded, but I'm pretty sure that everybody's probably seen from a different vantage point, almost directly below the flight. You can see the point at which, at least one of the points at which the bird, we're assuming, was ingested into the right engine, the number 2 engine, the one that we see on that video that I played as they're skidding down the runway with the open reverser. And as far as we can tell, that was the only engine that suffered a bird strike, but we're not really sure about that. Hopefully in the investigation, they're going to be able to determine whether or not both engines were affected or just one of the engines. So at 9 o'clock, so just a minute after they declare Mayday and bird strike go around, they initiated a go around, request authorization to land on runway 19, which is the approach of the opposite direction on that same runway. Air traffic control cleared the aircraft to land on runway 19 at 1 minute past 9 o'clock. 2 minutes past 9 o'clock, they touched down. So from the very beginning here, when they declared the emergency bird strike, go around was 8:59. They were cleared to land at 3 minutes later, 2 minutes later, and then somewhere around 4 to 5 minutes after this whole thing started, they ended by crashing into that localizer array. The aircraft touched down about 1,200 meters, 3,940 feet, so almost 4,000 feet down the 9,184-foot runway. And then everything else here in the sequence talks about the air traffic control alerting crash bells at the airport, etc. Let's see. Okay, on December 31st, the Transport Ministry in South Korea said that the data has been downloaded from the cockpit voice recorder. However, a key connector is missing from the flight data recorder, and authorities are reviewing how to download the data. And I believe now the update is that they have sent the flight data recorder to, I believe, Washington. NTSB is going to see if they can get the data from the flight recorder because the folks in South Korea don't have the right connector to get the data off. So hopefully, fingers crossed, that the data is still there and recoverable. So we're hoping that that's the case. And yeah, such a tragedy, but so much. There's a lot of speculation going on out there, and a lot of YouTubers, including YouTubers that are 737 pilots, have a lot of experience with the aircraft, kind of scratching their heads too about why the crew decided that they had to get the airplane on the ground immediately and not go fly somewhere even with, degraded thrust and start running checklists and preparing for this landing and perhaps maybe lowering the landing gear manually. But clearly they didn't take the time to do any of that. And some are speculating that maybe it's because they didn't have both engines running. Maybe they were dual engine failure or dual engine severely degraded thrust situation. But I don't know. I have no idea. This is really a head scratcher for me. So crew, let's discuss.
Yeah, I think there's the major questions that we're all really interested in is, did they have two serviceable power plants? If not, which one had received damage? Possibly both had. If they got a bird strike in one engine, they might have had one in another. That piece of video shows one engine giving out a large puff of smoke, possibly indicating that that engine has been damaged. But it doesn't mean to say that the other one wasn't damaged a little earlier. They put out a mayday with their bird strike call. They didn't say they had an engine fault. They said mayday bird strike. Now, normally when you get a bird strike, it's not really a mayday situation. So I'm thinking that they'd received significant damage probably to an engine plant. There is the concern that because they did a very fast sort of teardrop to get back to the runway, the fastest possible way they could, did they really have time to properly assess which engine was damaged and shut down the correct engine? That's a possibility. And all these questions are up in the air at the moment. So we need to know what happened to the power plants. As regards getting the gear down, we need to know the situation with the engines before we can just work out which hydraulic systems were available to them. I believe the right engine controls the hydraulic system for the undercarriage. I'm not certain about that. I'm not a 7.3 man. I think they call it A and B, but anyway, the gear works off one side, the flaps work off the other, but they didn't seem to have selected either. And that is a problem. If you're going to try and belly land an aircraft because you can't get the gear down, you should at least try and get the flaps down to reduce your approach speed, because the extra speed that they seem to be carrying took them a long way down the runway. And with way too much energy to stand a chance of stopping before they reach the end. Why didn't they put it down earlier? Well, they probably were going a bit fast, but then again, it's quite likely that, without the undercarriage, the aircraft is going to appear a lot lower. And that sounds stupid, but when you're a pilot used to landing the airplane so many times and it's to a certain picture out of the windshield of what it looks like when the wheels touch, it must be very disconcerting realizing that you've got to go another 4 or 5 feet down before your belly hits the runway and you can start slowing up. All that time, you're barely losing any speed. You're sitting in ground effect, which is quite strong on a 737. It's got a low wing, which does generate a lot of ground effect. So it may be that they fled to the usual picture they expect and didn't put the airplane down far enough to engage the belly on and the engines onto the runway. They managed to get the reversers out. There's been suggestion that they could have been dragged out by the friction of them on the runway. I think that's very unlikely. The reversers are normally well locked in because it's dreadfully bad to have a reverser deploy accidentally. It can be catastrophic. So I suspect that they did try and select it. There have been other people looking at videos head-on during the arrival that seem to suggest that the engine that had received the bird strike was the only engine producing a heat haze, indicating that it was running. And the other engine on the other side, which we are currently sort of assuming is undamaged, has no haze at all and no reversers. So is it possible that that engine had been shut down? A lot of conjecture, but we really won't know. We won't know why they felt the need to make such a quick approach. We don't know why they didn't want to put down or couldn't put down gear flaps, and we don't know quite the situation with the power plants. But the end result was they touched down and ran off the end of the runway at some speed. So, which leads me to the ILS localizer aerials. Apparently, they were mounted into the ground in concrete, and then to sort of protect them, they had a big earth pile of earth in front of them, a berm. So they might have thought that, well, that's sufficient to protect against an aircraft hitting them. Well, obviously not. But that apparently is not unusual in South Korea. That apparently is a reasonably common way to affix your ILS localizer aerials. Most airports I went to, they're up on frangible poles that will break if you put an aircraft into them. By the way, the reason they're above the ground is the ground slopes away a bit there, which wouldn't have helped with the retardation, but it was to get the aerials up on the same height as the runway. But it was a dreadful situation to be in, to have this damn thing right in front of you as you career off the end of the runway.
And for when I recall reading the specifications for the location of the antenna array on the berm were met. It's an older spec. I think maybe the newer spec has changed a bit, but it was not something that was illegal. It was something that was approved. And also, I think that there are more places than just Korea that have these kind of berm, kind of raised setups without frangible supports all around the world, and probably probably not the most developed nations, but the ones that really can't afford. I guess it's quite expensive to have these localizer arrays with frangible equipment attached. But I'm not sure. I'm not an expert on all that kind of thing. I had a discussion with Colonel Jeff, Captain Jeff, the good-looking Captain Jeff, a couple of days ago, and he was saying, or made the remark that if the thrust reverser was working on the number 2 engine, that's powered by hydraulics from that engine. And so he's, again, scratching his head thinking, well, if there were hydraulics available to operate the thrust reverser on that engine, then there must have been possibly hydraulics still available. I don't know. I don't know. I never flew the 737. I don't know all the systems, although I have a feeling that a lot of them are very similar to the systems on the 727, which I did fly. However, I flew that thing back in the 90s, and any memory or knowledge of the systems of the airplane have long gone and been replaced.
Is there not a manual way of putting the gear down?
Pardon me?
Is there not a manual way of putting the gear down?
Yes, there is a manual way to put the gear down, but it takes a lot of time.
Right, so their rush wouldn't have negated that option.
Right, if they were trying to get it on the ground, obviously not obviously, it seems that they may have considered themselves in one of those emergencies that time is critical, that you got to get it on the ground. You can't mess around. You got to do as much as you can in a very short period of time. And so I guess they decided that, well, we just don't have time to lower the gear, or perhaps they've made the decision or thought that landing with the gear up and on the belly would be a faster way to decelerate, more friction. I don't know. I'm very, very encouraged that they were able to recover the cockpit voice recorder, and all the data from that, I think, is good. And so I think that's going to tell us quite a bit, the discussion that they're having in the cockpit those last few minutes, how they determined what to do and what not to do. Main man Micah in our live audience says, other than in the simulator, have any of our hosts done a gear failure landing?
Closest I've been was a precautionary landing for gear that didn't go up, but it seemed like it stayed down. So It was precautionary because just in case any of the locks moved or anything like that, but thankfully no issues.
Well, my recording of on liveatc.net of a situation.
Yes, we know all about that one.
That the gear did not come up. But actually, to me, it wasn't an urgent situation at all. It just meant that we weren't going to be able to fly all the way to Washington. I think we were going to Washington, D.C. from Atlanta because with the gear hanging. It's a lot of drag. That you don't have enough fuel to make it the whole way. Obviously, it'd be very noisy. A lot of reasons why. we decided, we're just going to bring this thing back around. And I remember the controller, are you declaring an emergency? No, I'm good. We have 3 green lights. That means good gear. So we're in a good place. High-haul boxes in our audience. 737 reversers are covered by their own side hydraulic system indeed, and backed up by a standby hydraulic system, which originates from a roughly 75% level of the hydraulic B reservoir. Okay. Yeah, I'm wondering if somehow the hydraulic system was damaged, and like all the hydraulic fluid, but they, somehow ran out of it, but they had enough residual to operate the thrust reverser. I don't know. Again, I don't know enough about that system.
Doesn't explain why they didn't put any flaps down. Because not only have they got a separate hydraulic system to operate the flaps, they've also got a backup electrical way to wind the flaps out. But
yes.
That is a long process. A bit like, the time it takes to do a gravity drop on the gear takes a while.
Yes.
So they, for the same reason, Jeff, I think they felt compelled to put the aircraft or bring the aircraft back as soon as possible, and may have thought they didn't have time or didn't want to.
Yeah, and that is a system that is the same or very similar to the Boeing 727, where we have the backup, not only backup hydraulics or hydraulic systems that are shared for critical surfaces, but we also had a way to electrically extend the flaps, but it takes forever. I mean, it really is a long process.
I mean, if you're going to do a flapless landing in an airliner, I guess that would explain the energy state, because, I don't know, our speed in an Airbus would have, and the Airbus I flew would have been about 180 knots, perhaps a little more than that if you were doing a flapless landing. And that might have explained their high energy state. But other than that they had turned back a bit tight and just got themselves a trifle high.
Mm-hmm.
Were trying to get the airplane down to the runway and then hit ground effect and just hurtled along like they were on ice.
Yeah. It sure, to me, it has things are just pointing at they just lost all their power. Engine power, thrust, and they were thinking, we got to do whatever we can do to keep this thing as slick as we can and bring it back down, because the energy state, as you were talking about, Captain Nick, and I-haul boxes. So yeah, that's
I mean, we used to practice complete engine failure, gliding the aircraft back for a landing, and one of the common occurrences was you ended up with too much damned energy, because when you're kind of committed, lined up with the runway, and you're making sure you get there, you suddenly realize that you've got no drag, and you've got to get the gear down, the flaps down, and push the nose down, and then you suddenly realize, well, heaven's sake, I've left this too late to get everything hanging so I can stand a chance of slowing down, because you're so conscious of running out of energy during one of these glide approaches that you just err on the safe side, and that often leaves you with way too much speed.
Jeff, Peter Tarantelli talks about maybe another Funyun.
Oh, maybe another Funyun involved here. Peter Tarantelli in our live audience says it was also a very early morning flight, leaving at 2-something in the morning. Fatigue may have played a part. That's always something that, and I'm sure that they'll be looking at in the investigation.
Yeah, I think that is maybe a very good reason for why, if mistakes were made, why they would have been made, because we all know how hard it is when you're dragging your sorry backside across. Plus the fact that they have, been tired and anxious. That's another factor to mess with your judgment.
Yeah.
The weather was good, wasn't it? It doesn't look like.
Oh, the weather was very good.
Yeah.
Very light winds. Definitely visual meteorological conditions. So they had that going for them.
Yeah. Hey, Liz, that map of the bird feeding areas.
Yes, sir.
I find that quite fascinating, because these areas they note they've got lines indicating the fact that birds fly between one area and another, and they're going right across the approaches. I mean, absolutely ridiculous. But I do note the birds are very disciplined. They don't go above 163 feet above ground level.
Wow,
that
very
looks awfully
considerate.
Specific.
Yeah, I think that is. So
they're very specific bird type, I suppose.
They must be. They obviously suffer from a lack of oxygen if they go above 163 feet or something. I just thought that was a bit odd.
Is there a separate ATIS for them to set altimeter setting? Or?
Yeah,
I think it's just built in. And, in my experience, I found that the seashore and wetland areas where they have birds such as black-billed magpie, ring-necked pheasant, rufous turtle dove, tree sparrow, mew gull, and migratory birds such as mallards, gray herons, egrets, and house swallows are birds that kind of have this built-in barometric sense, and 163 feet is kind of in that zone of safety that they really cherish.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ed Kof says it was their service ceiling.
Service ceiling, yes.
Well, Peter thinks they all have a fear of heights.
Bob Judson has a comment here.
Can you imagine if you were a bird and you had a fear of heights? No.
Better at best if you're a penguin in that case, I suppose. Or
a flamingo.
Emu. Flamingo, yeah.
That's an interesting point, Bob. As I understand it, the conditions were pretty calm. In fact, their original approach would have had a slight tailwind component, but by the time they'd done their teardrop, they would have had a very slight headwind component. But generally speaking, you can take the conditions as calm.
High Haul Boxes has a solution to the bird situation, but the birds aren't real. They're electronic spy devices and use radar altimeters. That's a very good point. Yeah, there's no such thing as a natural bird. They're all
Maybe
CIA
North Korea's sending them down
things. Yeah. All right. Well, sorry to get flippant on a very, a very real tragedy for so many people that lost loved ones there. But that's what we do here. We try to take the sting out of terrible occurrences, disasters, and such. Speaking of disasters, thank you for watching our show. If you're watching the video, and just a reminder to those of you out there listening to the audio only podcast, which is about 99% of you probably. Just every now and then, if you have the time, you happen to see the notification from producer Liz that we're recording the show live, you should join us because I'd say most of the people in our live chat room, well, some of them are really good people, and I think you'd have a lot of fun. I'm just kidding; they're all great people. Yeah, please.
They can check the APG calendar, too.
Yeah, you can check the APG calendar. You can follow us on social media, which we'll brief you on at the end of the show. I know many of you probably don't ever make it to the end of the show because I know it's too long. And I think this might be a good time for us to continue with our news lineup. And this is one that perhaps Steph, I don't know, there's not a lot of information regarding this stuff.
I read through it briefly, but there's not any information that would help me know exactly what happened here. So questions.
Well, at least we can say that you're qualified to fly this airplane. And that's something that I can't say. I don't think any of the rest of us can say.
Let's just tell them what happened.
Okay, well, then that's a good idea, Liz. Let's tell them what we're talking about here. On the 17th of December, a Cessna 208 Caravan crashed into a building near the Honolulu International Airport in Honolulu. Very near, I think almost on the airport property, actually. Unfortunately, the two occupants of the aircraft were found deceased shortly thereafter. Hawaii state officials have reported that the aircraft was a Kamaka Air Cessna 208 Caravan, and the flight crew was conducting a training flight before the eventual crash. The building that the aircraft crashed into was vacant at the time of the crash, as it was slated for future demolition. And actually, I believe I have some video from some news coverage. If I can just figure out how to find.
It was a cargo plane, though.
It was a cargo. Yeah, there were no passengers on board. There were just two pilots, and they were performing a training flight.
Tonight, the NTSB investigating what caused this small cargo plane in Hawaii to spiral out of control near a busy highway before crashing into a building near the Honolulu airport.
I was working and all of a sudden head on loud one big boom.
This dashcam video showing the horrifying final moments of the flight.
Kamaka 689, you're turning right? Kamaka 689, we are out of control here.
The Kamaka Air Cessna 208 slamming into an abandoned building, killing the 2 people on board who were conducting a training flight, according to the airline.
I was sitting at my desk, and all of a sudden I saw a small plane fly past my office window. It started banking and turning back towards the airport, and then I heard a loud bang.
The crash creating this massive plume of smoke and flames seen for miles. First responders rushing to the scene.
Fortunately, the building is an abandoned building, so it was the best case scenario. No one else was involved in two souls that were lost. So.
The victims identified by family as Preston Kaluhiwa and Hiram DeFries, young pilots in their 20s.
And officials are praising the men, saying they avoided populated areas in a nearby fuel farm. The building they crashed into was empty and had been set to be demolished. Lester.
Thanks for watching. So that was from NBC Nightly News. And as we said so many times, and I know that reporters in their hearts really believe that pilots make every effort to avoid casualties on the ground and keep from hitting fuel farms and all these different things. But yeah, in this case,
I don't think that was the case here.
No.
It looks like some sort of very severe flight control problem more than anything, just the way they were banking and turning. I mean, with that limited amount of video would be my guess. So, but I don't have any other information. You know, we have a couple articles about it, but it doesn't say much beyond what we know from that clip that you just played.
Yeah, it almost appeared that they may have had some kind of an engine problem, and they thought, oh, we need to really do the impossible turn and turn it around, and they banked it up so much. I mean, in the video it shows it was a pretty darn steep, almost 90 degrees. It was
a steep turn. One thing, you know, going back to the previous item we were discussing, the Caravan will glide pretty well. You know, if they had an engine failure and they're trying to get back to the airport, you can certainly find yourself in that situation where you're trying to do that impossible turn and not be able to execute it. So that is a possibility. But yeah, I'm not sure. I don't know. It looks like they were almost just. I'm not sure how close they were to the actual airport when this occurred. So
they were pretty close.
Right
actually.
At the airport, basically.
Yeah, it was essentially the airport. They just went a little bit to the north, and instead of making that right turn, they turned left back toward the airport as if they were trying to land on one of the. I don't know. I'm just speculating.
Yeah, and I mean, I was kind of just saying more flight control issue as opposed to engine failure, because I think if they had loss of power, they would have said that to the air traffic controller and not used the words "we're
out of control."
He basically said we're out of control.
Yeah, good point.
So I'm not sure.
But. Yeah. Well, we're hoping that the NTSB investigation will reveal what exactly happened there.
Oh, the NTSB is going to be busy.
The NTSB is a very busy agency recently, sadly. All right. Well, thanks from our expert Cessna 208 Caravan pilot.
Wish I had more information for you, but
yeah, but maybe we'll get some in the future, and then we can talk about it in more detail. Let's see. Next item is where are we on the time?
We're just coming up to an hour in about 6 minutes.
Okay. Okay, I don't think I actually downloaded the video for this one, probably thinking that we weren't going to cover it.
And it's Canada anyway, so nobody cares. So.
Liz, come on. She's not self-deprecating. Well, in a way she is.
Yeah.
Canadian deprecation is happening in the background. Let's see.
Go to F, the Emerald. That's quite an interesting landing. The Irish landing there.
Okay. You know what, though? I think I'd rather go to G. Yeah.
Okay.
G and then the rest of them. And then we'll hold the other ones. Okay. And I do have video on this one. So the next item is a general aviation accident that occurred in Pearland, Texas. I'm not familiar with Texas, so I'm not sure exactly where Pearland is. Anybody on the panel know?
It's where all the pears are.
Oh yeah, Pearland, of course.
Yeah, it's part of the United States near the south
Thank
coast
you.
bit.
Thank you, Captain Nick.
Next to Mexico
yeah.
there?
It appears to be south of Houston.
You know, Canada's up
Thank
there,
you.
and then Mexico's
South of
down
Houston.
below.
That's right, southwest of Houston, I think. Okay, perfect. we know our geography here on the APG. Anywho, not that it makes any difference exactly where it was. I was just kind of vamping. I'm not really sure why, but I was. And I have some video to play from VAS Aviation. So let me get to the proper window for me to select it. And let me actually find that video. Yeah. Okay. I am ready, Liz, if you'll share it on the stage. Thank you. All right. So let's see what happens on VAS Aviation.
Radio check. Radio check.
32378, final 32 Pearland.
Okay, I'm going to pause the video here because it happens right away. The first two transmissions in this video are from liveatc.net, the recording of the air traffic control pilot frequencies here at Pearland. This is a common traffic advisory frequency. It's not a tower controlled airport. And the first two transmissions that we can see on this video are from November 5450 Lima, I believe, which is a Grumman AA-5 Tiger, a low-wing general aviation aircraft. And they are checking their radio because they apparently think there's something wrong with their radio. And so I just wanted to make sure that everybody understood that fact, which I think we're going to talk about after we watch the entire video here.
Radio check.
Oh, we're hearing again.
Out of clear.
General traffic, Skyline 7 CLD, there's a 2-mile left station, runway 32, Caravan, final flight, Pearland. Traffic, Skyline 7 CLD, there's a short final from runway 32, full stop, Pearland.
Okay, we're seeing some video superimposed of the Grumman.
There's a Grumman landing right behind you.
Huh?
Hold that kick quickly. They're about to hit you. They're going to crash at Pearland.
Pearland, traffic, 32378, left downwind, 32 Pearland.
There's airplanes on the runway.
You okay? Yeah. Are you okay? My fault.
Actually, I can't tell if they're on the runway.
Yeah, I can't tell if he's on the runway or if he's on the taxiway.
Sorry.
Regardless, they just crashed, so I don't know if it's safe to land.
Alright, got it. We'll exit the pattern.
Pearland traffic. This is the Pearland Unicom. Runway 1432 is now shut down. Armed traffic must divert or stay in the pattern. There are no landings. Pearland.
Pearland traffic, Archer 32378, we're departing pattern, exiting west. Pearland.
Yeah, good. They have the runway shut down, right? Yeah, runway shut down. Two aircraft just crashed. Nice. So, are you going to cancel your flight? Yeah, I'm canceling. I'm parking. Roger that.
Affirmative.
15 minutes later, it says.
Pearland traffic at 4260, 5 miles to the southeast, RNF 32 straight in approach. Pearland.
Cap 3260, Pearland Unicom.
Yes, Cap 3260, go ahead.
Be advised, there was an incident on Alpha 3. Taxiway Alpha 3 is closed. Personnel will be near the runway, but I'm about to reopen it.
Okay, I'll hold on, and we're going to do a touch and go anyways.
All right. We'll be keeping everybody clear, but just keep an eye out.
Do that. Thanks for the heads up, Cap 4260.
All right. The CAP is Civil Air Patrol. Now they're showing some images of the Cessna Skylane and the Grumman Tiger. A little beat up, actually. So AJ, your impression of what happened, your understanding of what happened here, please.
Basically, my understanding is that they had some sort of an electrical issue. I think that caused some level of panic with the guy in the Grumman, and he decided that he had to get that airplane on the ground right now. And the funny thing about aviation engines, when the electrical system, most aviation engines, I'll put that caveat in there, but especially in GA, they have a magneto ignition system, which means that if the electrical system fails, the engine does not stop running. It keeps on going just fine. So the airplane flies just fine. Yes, they lose their radios, but as we heard at the very beginning of the video, he still had some version of radio, so not sure if it was an issue with their headset jacks or it could be any number of things. And there's been a couple of videos that kind of covered some of this or what we could find out so far, and they're really good. So do suggest go look those up. But basically, he just made some poor judgment and decided he had to be on the ground right now, and put himself in a position to where he couldn't get the airplane stopped in time. One other thing kind of note, I've flown a Grumman Cheetah before, very similar to this airplane, and it does not have nose wheel steering, which does not sound like that big of a deal. There's plenty of airplanes out there that don't have positive control of the nose wheel or the tail wheel for that matter. So you use differential braking. It does add a little bit of complexity in a situation like this. Fast avoidance maneuvers, evasive maneuvers are not ideal in an airplane with that setup. So I don't know how much that could have contributed to this. From what I've seen in the videos and everything, it seems like the 172 that made their calls and landed on the runway was turning off of the taxiway there. I'm wondering if it's one of those, an inch or a mile, doesn't matter. If the Grumman could have just stayed a little bit more to the right. There's not a lot to hit underneath the wing of a 172. So it could have been another situation of target fixation. I've watched plenty of crashes on the racetrack of people that they see someone go off the turn in front of them and they're so focused on looking at them that they literally drive their perfectly good race car right off the track and into them. That's happened many, many times. So I think it was just a kind of like I said, got into a panic mode and decided he had to put the airplane on the ground right then and didn't make some good choices in doing that.
Yeah, this is an example of the two major types of emergencies. The ones that require that you get the airplane on the ground as soon as you can, like the airplane's on fire or you have no engine power. But other than that, almost everything else, you have time to work out what's going on and make good decisions. And I think the Cessna Skyline, the reason why he ended up veering over toward that first taxiway exit was because, and he went to the left, was because he had no idea that the Grumman was anywhere even in existence. The only hint that we heard, or the radio call that we heard from the Grumman, was at the very beginning when there were, radio check, obviously experiencing some kind of an electrical/radio problem. And then the warning that somebody else in the pattern gave the guy a heads up saying, hey, there's somebody, following you closely. And he, I think, interpreted that as somebody in the pattern coming into land, but not like right on his tail. So
yeah, you can't see behind you out of a 172. There's no real way to do that. So
yeah, so I don't think he understood quite the urgency of the fact, hey, there's somebody like about to hit you right behind you. That's how close they are. And so, I mean, I think that was just a way for him to, okay, I'm going to get this thing off the runway as soon as possible. He had no idea whether he was left or right of center line. He just thought, I got to get away. Now, AJ and I were talking a little bit about this at the beginning. The fact that he had made the radio call requesting a radio check, obviously he wasn't hearing anything, but he was transmitting. And this is something to take into account if you're listening out there and you're a GA pilot. Even if you think that the radio's dead and you're not transmitting anything, just continue to transmit, especially if you're in a situation like this where you're at a uncontrolled field and you're using a common traffic advisory frequency. Just assume that you are transmitting and letting people know, hey, I'm a Grumman out here. I have an emergency going on. Please clear the pattern, or I'm landing. This is where I am, and I'm about to land. And in that case, I think that the Cessna that was ahead of them probably would have thought, oh, I better break out and, go around, get away from this guy that's coming in to land on this runway,
Absolutely.
the same runway that I'm on.
And this could have been something as simple as he had a passenger in the airplane who, I'm assuming from the fact that he's videoing the landing with his phone, that's probably a clue that he might be new to aviation, inexperienced. He may have twiddled a knob trying to turn his volume up or something like that, and could have just turned the other guy's volume down or the radio volume down or any number of things. And that when you don't know what's changed, it's hard to change it back. We always say that if you do something in your airplane and something bad happens, undo the last thing you did.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't know what that last thing was, this could lead him down a long road of trying to figure out what the problem was, as simple as turning the volume up. And again, pure speculation.
AJ made a good point regarding the fact that there are several good videos out there discussing this, and two of them I've included in our show notes. I'm not going to play them on the show, but when we mention him all the time, Juan Brown, he was right on top of it shortly after this happened, and he goes through in quite a bit of detail about, he goes through, finds a guy at his airport that has a Grumman, and kind of takes you into the cockpit and explains the whole way that piston reciprocating engines work, and they have magneto systems, and how that's kind of a self-powered system. And so even if you lose all of your electronics, you still have the magnetos running. The engine's not going to stop because you've lost electrical power. And then he goes through one by one of all the instruments that are right in front of him in the panel, and how only, I think, one or two things, which
it's just the turn coordinator.
Yeah, the turn coordinator, and actually just the bank indicator, really. And and
I would say, looking at the video from this, though, it was a Cavu day. It was clear.
Oh, it was a beautiful day.
Unlimited visibility. So, that's not going to create an emergency if those things aren't
exactly.
working.
You don't need any of that stuff. Just use your eyeballs. Look outside. Airspeed indicator, you have. That's a pitot instrument. Altitude, you have. It's a static instrument. So the pitot static system is not an electrical system. It's a basic air-driven system with that little thing poking out.
Dave Lieb has a comment.
David Lieb in our live audience says, as soon as possible versus as soon as practical. Big difference depending on your emergency. Absolutely right, David. And I think that after he hit the other aircraft, and the video kind of shows the aircraft tumbled around quite a bit and the camera fell. I'm not sure exactly what the resting position of the aircraft was, but you could hear the audio of the video from whoever was videotaping this whole thing. Him saying, it's my fault. I'm okay. We're okay. It's my fault. He knew, that a little too late, that what he just did was not a good thing to do. That was a dumb thing to do.
Yeah, I agree, Jeff. The situation had gotten away from him, I'm pretty sure. But I just felt sorry for the Cessna pilot, because when he got that transmission that said, there's someone right behind you. There's someone behind you. He's right behind you. And he said, oh, okay, I'll expedite getting off the runway. Well, what's the first thing you do if you want to get off the runway quickly? Well, you brake hard and take the next available exit. And of course, that's actually the opposite of what really was needed. He shouldn't be braking hard. He should be, if anything, he can try and go around, or at least accelerate a little bit to give this guy some braking distance, some room behind him. Of course, he wasn't aware exactly of the situation that was going on. But as soon as he said, I'm going to expedite getting off the runway, I thought, oh, God, here we go. He's turned this into an inevitable situation. I feel very sorry for him, though.
Oh, yeah. I don't think he did anything wrong. I mean,
No,
hindsight,
not at all. No, it's just a circumstance.
Yeah.
And I was just saying,
Right.
no, the last thing you need to do now is brake hard.
I'm coming into Atlanta on 26 right, and Tower says, could you expedite your landing roll? And you have, somebody that's right behind you. I'm thinking, well, okay, he's a couple of miles behind me, right? Not literally right behind me.
Not already on the ground behind you, moving faster than
exactly.
you. Yeah, that's not what you're thinking.
My home airport, we have, we fly out of there. We've got 4 airplanes in our flying club, and they know some of our voices that fly very often. And there's some of us, they'll say, you're clear for takeoff, no delay. That means they've got somebody on final, not over the numbers, obviously, but they know to trust some of us that means go, right?
Yeah.
But even then, if he says no delay, I would be very surprised to look up and see an airplane right there on short final. They're still going to be, like I said, a half mile or a mile away.
That would be some bad contrling.
Yes.
Something that you would find at Piedmont.
Wow. Ooh,
try it. Yeah. Just kidding. Burn. Yeah, we got to start off the new year on the right foot, right?
Well, so much for those ratings you wanted.
Hey, those 2 boys, they know I love them. Great show. The best, actually. Yeah. So that was an interesting one. Just you have to. What did you say? What did your dad always say, Captain Nick? Take out a cigarette and light up a cigarette.
Wind your watch.
Wind your watch is one that I grew up with. Just of course, now it doesn't
really.
None of those things really applies anymore in today's newer generation. Like what? Take out a
sip
cigarette?
of your coffee.
Wind your watch.
Restart your phone.
Yeah,
what do you
just
mean
sit in
wind
your
your
hands
watch?
for a few seconds till you've worked out exactly what's going on.
Watch a couple TikTok videos.
Yeah.
Take your phone out, restart it. By the time it's restarted, you'll have had time to think.
Yeah,
there you
exactly.
Go. But it does take me back to military days of landing a whole formation, one after the other, on the same runway. So you've got, say, 4 airplanes, and you're all landing at 1,000-foot intervals or whatever it turns out to be. But we would just had an SOP that if you're in front of someone landing behind you, you never braked hard, and you always went to an agreed side of the runway as soon as you were safely under control, so that someone who did have a problem had a big wide runway to go past you. So that was the kind of standard procedure. We rarely even briefed it because it was just became second nature not to sit and slap bang in the middle of the runway with someone coming down behind you. Not that this Cessna really had an appreciation of what was going on, but that was about one of the few things that might have saved him.
Yeah, you're right. All right, well, let's keep on moving on.
You've got about 15 minutes to the hour and a half mark, so you're okay. Like I give you more news.
Yeah, I think that was a great planning, Liz. Let's continue with H. Well, I'm being serious. Now you think I'm being insincere,
Sorry,
Captain
Liz.
Nick, based on your.
It was. I was looking at Steph. She put me off.
Oh, okay.
Nice diversion there.
I don't think so.
Do whatever the hell you want to.
That wasn't a very nice thing to say about Steph, Nick.
I was hoping he was talking about my comments in the chat room.
That as well, yes.
I don't know what's going on, but that's pretty much normal for me. Let's continue with 01H news. This was an accident involving a Swiss International Airlines Bombardier C-Series CS300, or as we know now, it's an Airbus 220.
A220.
These are powered by Pratt & Whitney Pure Power PW1500G geared turbofan engines. It was registration Hotel Bravo Juliet Charlie Delta, performing flight 1885 from Bucharest, Romania to Zurich, with 74 passengers, 5 crew, was en route at flight level 400, 40,000 feet-ish, about 20 nautical miles northeast of Graz. I'm not sure how that's pronounced, Graz. When the crew decided to divert to Graz, reporting smoke on board. The aircraft landed on Graz's runway 34, stopped on the runway about 19 minutes after the decision to divert. The aircraft was evacuated. A rescue helicopter positioned to the aircraft on the runway took a flight attendant under resuscitation on board and flew him to a hospital. The flight attendant died on December 30th, 2024. About 17 passengers and a number of crew needed medical attention too. The airline stated that the cockpit crew decided to make an unscheduled landing in Graz. The aircraft is currently on the runway. The passengers have been evacuated. More information will follow. They added subsequently that they had engine trouble and smoke in cockpit and cabin, and they are concerned about one of their cabin crew. The other 4 crew also went to see doctors. Later, the airline announced 2 additional flights were scheduled. Okay, it's not important. It didn't say really much about the passengers here. No, about 17 passengers needed medical attention too. Okay, never mind. So the thing that's interesting to me here, yes?
Did you see the cracked part of the engine there?
No.
There's a crack. Yeah, there's a.
No, I didn't. Thank you, Liz. She's asking me if I'd seen the cracked engine. Where is that?
Just a minute.
Okay.
Want me to read it out? It's a little paragraph here.
Yeah, go ahead.
According to information the Aviation Herald received, the left-hand engine suffered an oil leak causing the smoke. The engine seized as a result of an uncontained failure. The engine's main shaft was found fractured. The engine is being replaced.
Okay, but still, on the Aviation Herald, at least the narrative that I've been able to see, they didn't say anything. They said uncontained failure, which means that parts of the engine escaped the cowling or the zone of the engine that is supposed to keep pieces from flying out. And if they can't contain them, then it's called or considered an uncontained failure. But the thing that I'm wondering, and I guess maybe Liz, you're going to show us evidence that pieces did hit the airplane. Is that what... I don't understand what I'm trying to say here. I don't understand what happened with this cabin attendant that died. Was it because of the smoke inhalation, or was it because a piece of the engine went through the fuselage and
Well, initially I thought it was an engine piece, but I think it was the smoke, actually. I don't know, because I haven't seen any pictures of pieces flying out, even though he talks about it.
Well, you said something about a crack.
Well, I meant that fracture that Nick talked about, the fractured whatever he
okay.
about.
Yeah, so that's why I was saying that I'm really kind of confused about this whole thing. That it
does say on December 30th the airline reported the seriously injured flight attendant died.
Exactly. That's what kind of makes me go,
well.
But they don't classify injuries
what is the
by
injury?
a smoke inhalation injury is still an injury,
right?
In terms of these classifications. So it's hard to know if it was a bodily harm versus from an external
just above that they're just saying the focus are on the mechanical components like engines, but also the use of protective breathing equipment. So I think that might be an indication that this person was poisoned.
Well,
toxic.
And on that same vein, is things being categorized together. If the smoke escaped, does that make it uncontained?
I don't believe so. I think that usually refers to the mechanical parts, but
physical pieces.
Yeah, there's an actual definition of what uncontained means, and unfortunately I forgot to put it in here. But it basically involves like pieces of the engine, fan blades, turbine blades, engine shafts, and so that's what I mean. I think that caused the oil leak and the subsequent burning of the toxic oil and toxic gas entered the cabin through the pneumatic system of the aircraft engine, etc. And I think that maybe he was already what's the word?
Susceptible.
Susceptible is the word I was looking for exactly, because of maybe an existing health issue that he had as far as a pulmonary issue.
Previous exposure, because we know these toxins that are present in the engine oil can build up over time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm hoping that we're going to get a little bit more on this.
Yeah, I was just browsing a few of the just news articles. I know Liz probably looked at a bunch of them, but there's not any information whether he had a pre-existing condition or some sort of other susceptibility. And it sounds like the flight attendant was rather young from one of the articles. They didn't give an actual age, though. So unsure.
Wow. that was just kind of surprising. Now, you know, we had the picture on the video here, and we'll have that in the show notes as well. And it was very smoky inside there, but just
very smoky.
for somebody to die because of it is just like, really? Wow, that's.
Well, we've certainly had it suggested that a number of flight attendants and pilots have suffered long-term medical conditions, which they have put down to the toxic smoke that comes from oil leaks in engines. I think it's if this is the first death that we can attribute to it happening more or less coincident with the smoke, then I think it will add a lot of weight to the people who are saying my long-term illness has been caused by exposure to these the toxic chemicals.
Mm-hmm. I-haul boxes comes through as he normally does. Contained is one in which all internal rotating components remain within or embedded in the engine's case. So there you go. There's that.
So that never applies to helicopters.
Yeah, because it's never contained. things are flying off those darn things. Left and right, It's just a mess. That's why we think they're so dangerous.
Next comment is kind of pertinent.
Yeah, well, there have been a few issues with these Pratt & Whitney geared turbofan engines for sure. Yeah, that we've covered.
One of these articles that I was looking at had a statement from Swiss International Airlines saying that they specifically will not be providing any further details about the deceased and the cause of death. Oh. But I wonder if the investigating authorities will do so, because I feel like that's fairly relevant information.
Yeah,
I do too.
Definitely.
Huh.
Yeah.
All right.
That
was an odd one. Okay.
Let's finish with I, because it's a bit of an uplifting one.
Okay.
Don't you think?
Happy news.
Yeah, sort of, and it's one that I'm going to make a lot of fun of as well. So I'm happy to cover this next one.
Well, it's Canadian again, so go ahead.
Okay. Well, it has nothing to do with being Canadian. Well, maybe, I don't know. Let's see. Off-duty. This is from Paddle Your Own Canoe. Yay! Our first Paddle Your Own Canoe article in the new year.
Of the year.
From Matuz. Mashinsky. Sorry, I probably butchered the heck out of his name. Okay, so here's the headline. I have a problem with his headlines, by the way. Off-duty pilot comes to the rescue and helps land a Boeing 737 MAX after the first officer is suddenly incapacitated. Wow, that's pretty amazing. Okay. WestJet Flight 129 departed Calgary at around 9:21 p.m. on December 4 for the short flight to Vancouver, according to the Canadian Transport Safety Board, which has just published a brief report into the incident. The plane had reached its cruise altitude when the first officer reported feeling ill. The pilot became so unwell that the pilot became quickly incapacitated, could not continue his duties, the TSB reports, where we're using all these woke pronouns. Okay, or is it pronoun?
Pronouns?
Pronoun, that's
post-noun?
That was a prenoun.
Current noun?
Whoa, what am I saying? That doesn't make any sense. Okay, in this situation, in this kind of situation, the captain would normally consider declaring an emergency and getting the plane on the ground as quickly as possible. But in this case, it was established that an off-duty pilot happened to be flying on the aircraft as a passenger. The off-duty pilot came to the rescue and took the first officer's position in the cockpit, while the second pilot sat in the cabin for the remainder of the flight. So much for that guy. You're on your own. Hope you feel better.
Go sit down.
We're going to continue the flight.
You're incapacitated, but not that unwell, right? That's fine. You can just hang out back there.
As long as he stays in the seat, it's fine.
I'm thinking,
it's just very nauseating.
If I had done that on my previous company's aircraft operating as a captain, there would have been a lot of questions that I'd have to answer. So again, continuing with the article here, the captain decided not to declare an emergency or request a priority landing, and the plane arrived in Vancouver without further incident. Nothing to see here.
He really did not like that first officer.
That's I'm wondering if there's something like that going on. I hope that guy dies. But
that got dark.
Well, okay. Well, I hope he gets fired. Anyway, again, this is, as far as I know, I don't know about what you think about this, Captain Nick, but
I think we should query our legal department before you say anything else.
I think we might need to go interview some of Jeff's past first officers.
This is all said in jest, of course. I'm trying to make this entertaining. Obviously,
you're doing a good job.
I love everybody. I really do. I don't have any enemies that I know of, anyway. So I am just is appalled too much of a word to use that the captain. I mean, I think it's almost a requirement that if a flight crew member is incapacitated, I don't care if you have the best pilot in the world on board your airplane to take over for him. That's not the issue. This poor guy's sick. He needs to be on the ground soon. You need to declare an emergency, a medical emergency, get the airplane on the ground. Come on. I mean, there must be something I'm missing here.
How far were they from Vancouver when this happened?
Yeah, it's not that there aren't that many places between Calgary and Vancouver to put it down. Maybe Kelowna, but
okay, well,
depending on where they are.
They said the plane had reached its cruise altitude. Now it doesn't say exact. Matsus doesn't say, or not. Is it Matsus? Yeah, Matsus doesn't say exactly where, but I'm just in my mind, I'm thinking maybe they leveled off. They're at cruise altitude, and then all of a sudden he feels sick. But you're right. It could be that. The way that this is being reported is kind of overlooking the fact that, oh yeah, we were already starting our descent, or we were getting close to descent point. It wouldn't make sense to divert to anywhere else.
I mean, the issue to me would be that he didn't declare an emergency, so he didn't get expedited landing at Vancouver, which is pretty busy.
Exactly. I agree. Liz, absolutely. Now here's the thing. Okay, so of course, this is what happens when journalists do these articles. Then they throw in a couple extra things. Oh, last year there were 2 such high-profile incidents, including one on board a Southwest Airlines flight from Las Vegas, and we covered this one, when a pilot from another airline helped at the controls when the captain was taken ill. Shortly after departure, the captain reported stomach issues, had to be removed from the cockpit by flight attendants to receive medical care. At this point, a passenger who was a pilot for another airline volunteered their assistance. Southwest Airlines says that the crew checked the credentials of the off-duty pilot, and after these were verified, and I'm just reading this, he was allowed to land the plane. No.
Get your hands off the controls.
All right, that's not
Don't
what
touch
happened.
those.
He may have actually been allowed to touch the microphone to talk on the radio and maybe do some other switches or something at the direction of the acting.
Can you read this checklist, please?
He was allowed to remain on the plane while they landed?
Yeah, he was. And think, come on, people. You should. And okay. And then several months later, an off-duty Air Canada pilot who was deadheading on a domestic flight from Toronto to St. John's was able to step in and help fly the airplane when the first officer became unwell and was incapacitated. Now, that's much more accurate. Hey, I'm here. I'm a qualified pilot. Here are my credentials. Is there anything I can do to help? Not, oh, yeah, come on in here and you have the airplane and you're landing. Like, no.
Yeah. I'm just a first officer. You're a real pilot.
Yeah, you're a captain for another airline. So obviously, you must be God's gift to aviation. So come over here and land the airplane. Oh, my gosh. When I read this, I went, oh, you got to be kidding. This is almost worse to me than, an incident that occurred on a Cessna and they have a picture of a 747. Almost worse than that.
Nice one, Mazouz.
Yeah. Thank you, Liz, for
Okay. Let's move along then.
All right, let's move along. I guess it's time for me to push the button that says getting to know us. Right? All right. Getting to know us. That's the segment in the show where we get to figure out what everybody's been up to these past couple of weeks now. We took the week off for Christmas. And so, I think we've all been doing fun stuff since the last show, maybe. So who would like to go first? Tell us all about it.
Duffy.
Steph, according to the producer.
Me. I didn't do that much fun stuff. It was very
Oh.
quiet holidays. I'm sorry. I know. Boring.
Did you have like eggnog?
I had almond nog.
With no egg? Okay.
No egg.
Well, you're right. You didn't do anything
did.
fun.
And no milk?
That's no fun.
That doesn't sound like fun at all.
Not non-dairy eggnog substitute?
Yes, non-dairy eggnog substitute.
Are you not?
Or non.
Are you non-dairy?
No, it's just what was available at the store.
Okay. Because all the
you left
everybody
it
came
so
in.
late you ran out of eggnog.
I bought it actually about a week and a half in advance. I didn't want to buy eggnog too early. It doesn't last forever.
You went to the wrong store.
I went to Aldi.
You went to
That's
a
what they had.
gas station convenience store.
went to Aldi. So
I need presents for my mum and dad and some eggnog.
You have a
I mean, it was
keychain
good.
or something?
It was good. I did a little bit of nutmeg on top of it.
Oh,
it was nice.
Okay.
The flavor, it was good. Flavor was good. Yeah, it was a pretty quiet holiday on purpose. Wasn't really trying to do anything extravagant or outlandish. Had family over on Christmas Day. Very small, just gift exchange between the three of us. And I did have some time off last week, which was nice, but just mostly used that to tackle some projects around the house and rest a little bit. I haven't done that in a long time. I always say I'm going to take vacation time and just stay at home, and I rarely do that. So it's kind of nice to have
That's
that
good.
planned out that way.
Staycation, right?
Staycation. Did do a little bit of flying. Both of our aircraft were due for various maintenance items, so ferried those halfway across the state to where we have our maintenance performed. And what else? Went to the last home game of the local football team, which they did not win. I don't think.
They were. I think. I was,
Wait. Oh
I
no,
caught-
they did win.
I was going to say. I think
Wait.
I watched some of that,
We
and
did
I
win
thought
that
they were
game.
doing pretty well.
Actually, we won that game. I take it back.
Yeah.
We won that game, and that was a great game. I was thinking of the one before that. It went to overtime, actually, after they had been up like 30 to almost nothing and squandered the lead, and then tied in the last few seconds, and then went to overtime, and they ended up winning. So that was good.
Good job.
And I'm trying to think of anything else. Quiet New Year's as well. Did manage to make it up to stay up till midnight. I was not certain that I would do that because I've been getting up quite early to go work out. What's that?
No,
Champagne?
I said yay.
Oh, yay. I know.
Yay. A girl, a
I've
lady.
kind of shifted my circadian schedule to being up at about 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning and going to bed at 8:30, 9 o'clock. So I really wasn't sure that I was going to stay awake till midnight, but yeah, just a quiet evening with friends, and didn't do champagne toast, just had one of the first beers I've actually had in a while, which was quite tasty. Little toast and off to sleep. And yeah, that's about it. I wish I had more exciting things to talk about, but it's just been nice and quiet. And
No, that gives hope, Steph, to those of us who don't have exciting, adventurous lives like you have. And then
Well,
it
to
makes
be
us
fair, I have a
realize that
lot-
you're like normal.
I'm going to be away almost every weekend this month for something or another, so I am glad that I took the time just to stay at home and enjoy.
We are too.
Yeah.
All right.
So up next, going to Atlanta, actually tomorrow
Oh.
in the evening.
So you
doing
wait till
the-
I leave to come down to Atlanta. That's
Exactly.
the idea.
Jeff's getting
Okay.
One of my oldest friends, actually from med school, who I've done quite a bit of running and racing with. We're doing the Atlanta Track Club's Peachtree Polar Opposite. So it's the Peachtree Road Race, but run in reverse. And neither of us are in running shape right now.
You're going backwards?
Yeah, it's a point-to-point course.
Do you have somebody
You have to
looking
go.
out
You have to
out
run
for-
backwards.
That's
You have to run backwards. Yeah.
That's what we're all imagining. And you have somebody out there looking, out for you. Oh, okay, watch out. Go to the left a little bit. Go to the right. Okay.
Do you wear crash helmets for this?
You
I
should.
might need one. So.
Extra pads.
Well, that sounds like
But no, it should be fun. Neither of us is in good running shape right now, so we're probably just gonna mostly walk it and
Yeah.
cruise.
catch up with our on each other's lives. So that should be
Cool.
fun.
Nice.
That's what life's all about. All right. Cool. Very good. AJ, yeah. What? So you're in your
present.
mobile studio. You're not at your home deep in the Georgia forests. By the way, his house is nowhere deep in the Georgia forest. That's all
It's in a
wrong.
small ravine. There's
No.
a creek.
Okay.
There's
It's
a
a
creek. It's
subdivision,
right
a
behind
nice
the house.
home, and it's a nice subdivision in metropolitan Atlanta. Go ahead, sir.
Anyway. No, I'm not at home. I am out traveling the world. Well, at least as far as the Southeast is concerned. Up here in South Carolina, doing a accelerated program for my commercial. There you go.
Sorry.
So you came here and I'm going there. I got it.
Exactly.
That's how it works.
I think you planned this. Yeah.
Mhm.
So yeah, doing an accelerated program for my commercial rating. So hopefully coming up next week, I'll be eligible to have someone pay me legally to fly airplanes.
That's fast.
Woohoo.
We'll see what happens.
Very.
What was
Have
the
you started?
accelerated time frame?
Yeah.
It was
So I just got here today, flew in this afternoon, crashed and put together the mobile studio, and I start tomorrow morning at 8:30 a.m. And 3 straight days, so Friday, Saturday, Sunday of
just
sounds like
maneuvers
about
and
sounds like about 10 hours a day minus lunch break and whatnot, but a 10-hour day, give or take, half mornings in the sim and real airplanes in the afternoon. Just do that over and over and get everything check ride ready, and then get a day off on Monday, and check ride is scheduled for Tuesday. So
Better let us know.
That's fast.
Yeah. You have to let us know how that
What
goes.
aircraft are you flying?
I'm flying a 172,
Oh,
but it does have the Super Hawk conversion, so it has 180
horsepower.
Yes.
Oh.
Hey, you know
It's
what?
the fancy 172. Listen, if you're going to fly a 172, 180 horsepower is nice.
Especially an old 172 that's very, very light
Mhm.
with the big engine, because on the way here, I have a picture of it, a blistering 152 knots across the ground. Yeah, it's nothing.
How big was the tailwind?
That's not important. Charleston.
I knew better than to ask.
Charleston actually asked me, and they're like, these two questions honestly came back to back. Just want to confirm you're a 172? Yes. What are the winds aloft? A lot.
75.
So flew out today, super smooth flight, was gorgeous until I got to Charleston. Within about 6 miles of the airport, all of a sudden I started experiencing some light chop. Sorry, Delta. But enjoyed it. Enjoyed the flight over. Got all settled in. I did the mystery rental car, which is always an adventure in and of itself.
What'd you get?
It's the cheapest option. And they gave me a Dodge Ram 1500. So
nice.
Oh,
rolling
that's
in
nice.
perfect Charleston style.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Did not find any beer in the bed, though. I was a little bit disappointed by
You're
that.
talking,
So the
just to
last
clarify,
guy-
the bed of the truck, right? Not the
Correct.
bed of your
Yes.
hotel room. Okay.
Neither place did I
Oh.
find beer,
Oh.
unfortunately.
That's sad.
So that's up to that's today anyway. We'll see how the rest of the weekend goes, but excited for it and ready for some busy flying days. Hope the weather looks actually it's going to be pretty nice. It gets a little bit windier towards the end of the weekend, but
A little chilly,
we'll see
too.
how that goes. Yeah, the airplane's got a heater. I'll be fine. At
That's
least my
true.
left leg anyway. And then other than that, Christmas was fantastic. Got to spoil the crap out of my kids. So they got, Jeff has seen they already have way too much stuff, and they got again way too much more stuff. So they're very.
They deserve it. They're good kids.
Covered up, yeah. Thanks. At least when you're around, anyway.
Yeah, I know. It seemed a little brief. Brief experiences.
But yeah, so that and got to do a little bit of flying just before Christmas with a friend. Did some approaches to stay current and proficient and all that. Otherwise relatively quiet.
Very good. Quiet is good. Well,
Unless
most
it's
of the
too
time.
quiet.
Unless
Unless you're in
a single engine airplane.
An airplane. Yeah.
There's the two places: in an airplane or in my house with my children. If it gets quiet,
something's wrong.
Nice one.
Call the police. All right. Very good, and great to have you on with us, AJ. Thanks for taking the time, especially for this important training that you're going to be going through, and we wish you the best success, and we definitely look forward to hearing the successful outcome.
Good news.
From you.
Enjoy those 8s on pylons.
Yeah, pylons on the 8. Is that what they call that?
8s on pylons.
Oh, that's it.
That and my World War I evasive maneuvers. Excited for that too.
Yes. Enjoy.
What?
Shondells.
Shondells were.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Weren't they backup singers for somebody in the?
I think so.
It was. I think it was
in like the 60s.
Yeah.
That was. I think that was the band name, though. Yeah. The Shondells.
Yeah.
Spelled. I think it was spelled different.
Yeah, it's same thing.
SHON.
All right.
But who's counting?
Yeah, Captain Nick, what have you been up to, sir? Have you did you have anything going on since the last show, like maybe Christmas?
Oh, well, I think everybody had that.
Yeah.
You may not have celebrated it, but we all had to experience it one way or another.
Right.
Yeah, we had a great time, the whole family around, and we drank lots. Went down the pub for lunch, which was fabulous. They put on a really good Christmas lunch for us, and opened all our presents, all that kind of stuff, which was really nice. Thoroughly enjoyed that. In fact, I'm wearing my Ugg boots, my brand new Ugg boots right now. Yeah, indeed. And they are roasty toasty. In fact, I've had to take them off a while ago, give my feet a bit of a break.
They're too warm.
Yeah, absolutely. And since Christmas, the weather has been pretty foul here. We've had, a lot of wind, some, storms go through, and lots of rainfall. But today, at least, was nice and clear and bright, if a bit chilly. But there you go. That's the new year. Now, I have some communication here concerning, I think it was the last show we dealt with the Virgin 9 going into JFK with a problem, and we talked about it, and I just happened to get a communication from a friend of mine, lovely friend of mine, who reminded me that we flew together out of Japan, and this is many years ago now, but more or less as we were getting airborne, Japan suffered one of its worst ever earthquakes.
Yeah.
And there was quite a severe loss of life, particularly, I think, around Chiba and places. As we departed and didn't think any the more of it, but on the departure we were told that we had to turn off all the live updates for news and things because they didn't want distressed passengers finding out that there had been a disaster in Japan until after we'd landed at Heathrow, when they could at least then speak to their loved ones and find out what was going on, because no one really knew what was going on. But that had been quite an interesting, quite a traumatic flight, really, for us all, because we knew what had happened, and we had lots of Japanese cabin crew on board who dealt with it amazingly well, considering they had loved ones in Japan and didn't know how they were. Anyway, that he reminded that we'd flown that flight together. But he said here in his feedback, I had the fault on the VS9, good assessment throughout by the team. I think he's complimenting us there, Jeff.
Wait a minute. So wait, just to clarify here, just in case people just missed that very important point you just made, he was the crew or part of the crew on that flight that we were covering with the issue.
Oh, yeah, and he's one of our listeners. So thanks very much indeed. He said the Germans, Stefan, had it correct. It was an AFDX switch fault. I'm none the wiser. But it leaves you, he says, with a list of faults, 10 ECAMs and 7 pages of dispatch messages. Basically, an ECAM message that might affect the next sector. The problem was I lost most indications with contradicting information from the sources he had, Airbus, main troll, the FCOM books, etc. Well, not books anymore, are they? They're all on the screens. So without guaranteed indications of things like gear. He said he took a very cautious approach. He wanted a clear runway with an ILS to himself, and configured the aircraft early on base leg to make sure everything came down, but all worked fine, as I was quite sure it would. He mentioned that the 350 has got rid of most of the physical smaller computers that control individual components like the landing gear computer and the slat flap control computer, and move these to apps which are incorporated in separate computers, 10 in total, giving redundancy. But obviously this particular fault threw a lot of that into confusion. And regards from him. So lovely to hear from him, and nice to hear some feedback that we got that assessment just about
Small
right.
world,
So
really.
particularly
it really
German.
is a small world.
And it is, yeah. So that was lovely to hear. Thanks very much indeed, Marco. And perhaps we'll bump into each other sometime in the future. That'd be lovely.
Just evidence that some of the best pilots in the world listen to our show.
Indeed. I did mention how calm and cool they all sounded on the radio, but yeah. Then there's the artwork from last week. So we had lots of excellent suggestions. Like we were mainly concerning ourselves with pigs who were making very, very noxious smells on a KLM flight. So we had emergency evacuation, bean counters, pigs and pilots. Can. That was a good one because, of course, pigs needed the can, I think. Pigs in Bermuda shorts.
Wait a minute, pigs and pilots, so, isn't that the same thing? Redundant?
Speak for yourself. So what we ended up with was a line of pigs in Bermuda shorts doing the can in front of lots of cans. And obviously they're dancing in the results of their emergency evacuations.
Yes.
They're happy as a pig in
happy.
Okay.
Very happy.
Thank you, Liz.
Pigs are when they're... Yeah, exactly. Now, if you look quite closely behind the word Bermuda, you'll kind of, actually that's, behind Porcine, Bermuda, you can see the show logo.
Mm-hmm.
So
Very
it's
nice.
there on the back wall. But if you want to find the number, it's a little harder. So on the shorts,
wow,
it's woven into part of the detail. We got a 6.
I'm concerned about what part of the
left hand.
shorts I'm staring at there. To
Well,
see
don't
the
stare too
numbers.
long.
They're little piggies, don't worry.
Okay.
And then
Just
2
know
4s.
you're into pigs, Steph.
Yeah, they were
Not
woven in
with
around
us.
the flowers on the Bermuda shorts. So that's where the
wow.
numbers were.
I never found those.
Yeah,
Of course, I
I
wasn't
didn't get
staring
those,
at their
but-
crotches
You
either.
weren't trying hard enough, obviously.
Nice, as always.
done, Nicholas.
Excellent.
Well, very well done.
So that was a bit of fun. I hope we get some good suggestions this week.
Yeah, me too.
And by the way, the Porcine Bermuda evacuation, we all understand Porcine, yeah?
Porcine.
Yeah, porcine or porcine.
Porcine.
Porcine, yeah. You could
related
pronounce it
to
porcine.
pigs.
Porcini.
Porcine and porcelain. There, yeah.
Don't think there's any connection there, except for they use a lot of the same letters. But thank you, Liz.
My piggy bank had both.
There's the porcelain throne behind them.
Oh, I see. Very clever.
Yeah, very good.
Perceptive as
Yeah.
well. Okay.
Good job. Thanks, everyone.
Okay,
Yeah,
Jeffrey.
you. Good job. Christmas tide. It's the 9th day of Christmas now? Still Christmas, people. And what is it? 9 ladies dance? No, 9 lords a leaping? What is it? What is the 9th? I don't know. Anyway.
10 lords a leaping.
10 lords. So 9.
Nine
something.
ladies dancing.
Ladies
Yeah,
dancing.
ladies
There we
dancing.
go. All right. So I was very busy during the Christmas season, which we're still in, but especially the Christmas vigil, the Christmas Eve, and of course Christmas Day. Sang a bunch, and I got to spend time with my good friends at the church. And the next day, Christmas Day, I didn't do any singing at all, except for singing to like songs of the 70s on Sirius XM satellite radio. And drove over to the my choir director and her husband's home and hung out with them for a while, and then went over to her daughter and son-in-law's place up in Cartersville for the early evening and evening sit-down fancy dinner, and that was a lot of fun. So that was a great time spending Christmas with my adopted family. And the next day was the second day of Christmas, or Boxing Day, or the Feast of St. Stephen, a bunch of different things. Kwanzaa, first day of Kwanzaa, or maybe there's only one day of Kwanzaa. Anyway, and my birthday. And so I got to meet up with Natalie, my daughter, and her birthday was just a couple of days ago, New Year's Eve, and she was going out of town the next day, so we met together as we have been doing the last couple of years, and kind of exchanged Christmas/birthday presents and enjoyed a nice meal together. And yeah, that's been pretty much it. I am back. I stayed about a week and a half in a courtyard, a relatively new courtyard hotel next to Avalon in Alpharetta. Beautiful property, and it was nice because the temperatures a few of those days dropped below freezing, and I winterized the house that I'm in now.
For the second time.
And for the second time, yeah, successfully. I reintroduced water into the system, and everything seems to be working and no leaks. So, knock on wood. So I moved out of, I think after 9 or 10 nights there, moved back into the House on Wheels, the RVS, the Road Vessel Studio, and I'm back up at Lake Lanier. And yeah, I'm here right now, and I'm going to share some photos I just took a couple of hours ago. So this is
lovely, Jeff.
This is my front yard, Lake Lanier, and the sun that's almost due. Well, not due east, but kind of east southeast. That's where the sun comes up every morning. I didn't think to take a picture of the sunrise. I should have. So I have that, and then looking back up from the lake up to my spot, my campsite, and so the side yard, and then another shot of the RVS there, and again the view from the driver's side, looking back down at the lake in the background. So that's
is the campground pretty empty?
The campground is, I'd say, I'd be guessing as far as occupancy of the campground, but it's definitely less than 50%.
Right.
Maybe something closer to 25%, 30% filled. Only us, full. Not all. I don't think that everybody here is a full timer, but I think a lot of us are full-time RVers here, staying at the campground. Anyway, I love this campground. It's very, very nice. And I'll be here until my last night here is Friday night. So 2 more nights. Saturday morning, I am going to set off for Florida because guess what? Temperatures are going to drop. Kind of alluded to that a little bit with AJ and Charleston. It's going to be very chilly here in North Georgia, and probably going to be pretty chilly up where Steph lives as well over the weekend, and then into the week, and then even the following weekend is supposed to be very cold and possibly covered with white stuff. Some snow is being forecast.
You're welcome.
Certain areas. Yes, thank you.
This
Liz,
is definitely Canada's fault.
sending all your cold, frigid Canadian air and stuff down here. But I'm getting tired of winterizing the Road Vessel Studio, and I decided, well, I'm not going to stick around. I'm going to head south. I'm heading down to Florida, and I'm going to be there probably for the next couple of weeks at least, and just kind of see what happens with the temperatures. And
you got to go pretty far south, right? Don't you?
I do have to go very far south, Liz, but I'm going to be working my way down. Initially, I'm just going to actually not even make it to Florida. My first night on Saturday night, I'm going to be just off of Interstate 75 at, I don't know if Carol's a guy or a girl, but he has a sausage, Carol's Sausage It's a sausage company, so they have all kinds of delectable meats and other items available for sale, and they also allow for people that are Harvest Host members, like myself, to spend the night at their facility. Yeah, thanks. I haul boxes. Florida man in a van, and I'm not quite Florida man, but thank you for those nice thoughts. Florida, that's just for people that don't know. I mean, what is that kind of meme? Is Florida man is kind of like a crazy
Florida man is not very intelligent and makes less intelligent decisions.
Thank you. That's me. Anyway,
generally resulting in some sort of humorous headline.
Yeah, it's kind of a derogatory.
Good one from Tim Van Ram.
Tim Van Ram says, we have a Mexican forecast. Chili today, hot tamale. Oh, that really deserves one of these if I can find it. Anyway, yeah. So, oops. How do I?
So you'll be on the road for the next few
shows. Yeah, I'm going to be on the road for the next couple of shows at least. I don't know. Heck, I might just stay down there and work my way back up and maybe go to that RV Super Show in the Tampa area on the way back. I'm not sure yet. Maybe go say hi to all the bigwigs over at Leisure Travel Van while I'm down there.
You're very tight with them.
Yeah. So that's what I've been up to and what I'm going to be up to in the next couple of weeks. But don't you worry, or don't blame me, but we are going to keep doing the show. It's obvious. It's a mobile studio, so that's why we call it the Road Vessel Studio. I'll be with my studio everywhere I go, and hopefully we'll have some good internet connection, or I will at least, and we'll continue to do the show, and I'll fill you in what my travels have resulted in or yielded.
Johnny, how much more coffee?
No thanks.
I love coffee, I love tea, I love the APG community. Coffee and tea and the driver and me. A cup, a cup, a cup, a cup, a cup.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
All right, the Coffee Fund. It's your way, dear watcher, listener, audience member, to support the show financially if you have the resources to do so and you like us. That's a good reason. And a couple of different ways to do that. You can become part of our Coffee Fund cadre or the Coffee Bar Club by becoming using the Coffee Fund Classic method of contribution. And we have a couple of people who used that mechanism since the last time we did a show. And those people are Richard Adams and Richard Spoors. So I guess the Richards came to the rescue there in the Coffee Fund Classic method. Thank you very much for that and your fine contributions. And we also do something called Patreon. You can become a patron on patreon.com. And since the last episode, we have a new producer, Amy Hancock. And she's giving in tender, that's British, like the pound sterling. So I'm assuming that she lives somewhere over there and near you, Captain Nick. So thank you, Amy, for becoming a producer. And we have a couple new executive producers as well. And they are...
Oh, yes, sorry. I was distracted by Steph.
John Johnson and Daniel Sage. Again, two new executive producers. And Steph, quit distracting Liz. Yeah, so
sorry.
That's the that is your way to support us financially if you deem that something that would be good for you, and we would certainly appreciate it if you considered it. So that's it. airlinepilotguy.com/coffee. You can find more about it there. Okay. I don't know what I'm saying anymore. I'm just blabbing away. What, 2 hours really?
Half an hour to cover a few feedbacks.
Okay. Let's then hit the feedback bumper.
Captain, incoming message.
Okay, thank you. Probably would be helpful if I actually got to the first piece of feedback. Okay. Our first feedback is from Ernest. He's MetroDoc on YouTube. And he says, hello to the APG family and community. Since I'm just an AV geek, there's no such thing as just an AV geek. I mean, you're an AV geek. Come on, embrace it. Yell it out to the world.
One of us. One of us.
One of us, yeah. And know little about the flight rules. We don't know much about them either, actually. I'm curious about... The rules are for suckers. That's what I say. Anyway, I'm curious about what happens when the ATC requests pilots to call a number after an airport incident, such as incursions. Does the FAA launch an informal investigation? And are the pilots or controllers, if found at fault, do they get sanctioned? P.S. Hopefully none of you have had to make that call. Love the show. Ernest Holiday from Nashville, BNA, Bananaville. He's MetroDoc on YouTube. It's his second feedback. Second feedback for MetroDoc. All right, we got it. We're keeping score. So thank you, Ernest. And I guess I'm going to have to just talk briefly. I did when I started podcasting, my aviation podcast show, it was entitled Catholic Pilot. And I believe I discussed it on one of the very last Catholic Pilot episodes that I did. And you're saying, what is it you discussed, Jeff? Well, I discussed an incident in which I was flying the Mad Dog from Washington National to Atlanta, Georgia, Atlanta International. And let's see, what was significant about that flight? Really, really crappy weather. Very, very low ceilings. Lots of wind, especially just above the surface. The winds basically
excuses?
Shift. Yes, I am making it. No, I'm giving reasons.
The reasons.
Yeah, not excuses. And so it was a dark and stormy night. I mean, literally taking off on Nationals runway 1. Those of you who are AV geeks or professional pilots know that you have to turn pretty quickly after you take off from runway 1 because you're kind of pointed right at some sensitive areas of the United States of America. It's called, what is it called? Restricted? No, it's called prohibited area. It's worse than a restricted area. It's called prohibited area 56, and P56. That's the area that surrounds the nation's capital, the Congress building, the White House, all those things, Washington Monument. And I forgot to add, also had the CEO at the time of my airline on board the aircraft, just to add a little bit of stress to the whole situation. And there was, again, I go into a lot more detail about it in the episode and I'll try to remember to put a link in there for you to listen to me kind of go over the whole situation. But I allegedly entered into the prohibited area. By the way, they don't shoot you down. I'm evidence of that. If indeed I actually did, if I did actually enter the prohibited area, it was just by a little smidge.
Maybe that Azerbaijan plane went into the prohibited area.
No. Too soon, Liz. So I basically what happened is it took off, and then the winds shifted very significantly, like almost 180 degrees, and had a very strong, what do they call it, nor'easter kind of weather up there. For those of you living up there on the eastern seaboard, you know what I'm talking about. And and there was also all the darn what do you call them again? The Funyuns aligned that evening, and it turns out that there was a new engine out procedure that had just been issued just a few days beforehand, and I remember my first officer briefing it, and it was his leg. So it wasn't my fault. And I was kind of going like, what is he talking about? I don't really understand what he's talking about. Anyway, it turns out that's something that you should do if you actually lose an engine, not something that you should plan on actually flying, and what it does is basically it's since then changed because of not only our flight but several others. Not sure how many, but more than a dozen that also had the same kind of alleged violation of this restricted area and the confusion regarding the new procedures, etc. And long story short, about halfway from National down to Atlanta International, the center controller said, "Hey, Delta so-and-so, do you have time to copy down a phone number to call?" And I'm going, "Oh no." I think we're actually on Atlanta Center by that point. And I went, "Yeah, go ahead." And so I got one of the, "Do you have, can you copy down this number, please? We'd like you to call." And so I did. And what happened is that there was an investigation. And then in most of the airlines around the world, I think now they have programs that where representatives of your pilot union, representatives of the company representing pilots, and members of the FAA form a team to kind of look through these occurrences to see what people can learn from them, and if extra training is required or something, and then they determine whether or not something was definitely violated, and it turns out, in my case, after 2 weeks of
you were exonerated.
Vacation. But let me tell you what, even though I was off the flying schedule for 2 weeks, it didn't mean I was out there on the beach relaxing and drinking pina coladas. I was thinking, what's going to happen here? Like, I'm in big trouble maybe. And so they reviewed the case, and they determined that I what was it called? A letter of no action, I think is what they called it, which stayed in my record for a year after that point. But basically they said these are the facts, and this is what we determined, and there were circumstances that were out of your control, and blah, 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 and there was no action taken. So
when you actually called that number, who did you talk to?
So when I called that number, I was talking with somebody I think it was somebody in air traffic control in Atlanta, and I'm not sure if it was Center. It must have been Atlanta Center. Somebody in the administration of the air traffic control, air route traffic control center, I think. Now it's kind of, I'm trying to blot it from my memory, but I think that's who I talked to. And then, of course, when we got downstairs into the pilot lounge after completing our flight, the pilot chief pilot office already had received notification that there was an possible issue going on with our flight and the crew and everything else. And so then we had to fill out our ASAPs, was it aviation safety something, I don't know, I forgot what that stands for, and also another form from NASA has a form. I'm forgetting all these things already.
Aviation Safety Action Program.
Thank you. Aviation Safety Action Program. And then what's the thing at NASA that we fill out?
It
does the same sort of thing, but basically, in a just safety culture, you say what you think you did and what maybe contributed to what you did or didn't do, and then what you can learn from it and others can learn from, and that kind of sort of thing.
Like confession.
It's the Aviation Safety Reporting System for the NASA
Aviation Safety Reporting System. Thank you, Steph. So I filled out those things, and then of course, while we're on the computer, like entering all that information, then I hear on the overhead speaker from the chief pilot office, would Captain so-and-so and First Officer so-and-so please report to the pilot, please report to the principal's office. So we did that, and I have to say the assistant chief pilot, there are many of them in the Atlanta chief pilot office because it's just over 6,000, maybe more than that now, pilots based in Atlanta for just our airline. And he was very nice and said, "Here's the deal," and he's the one that kind of revealed that we weren't the only ones that night, and but they were investigating and explained everything, how everything was going to go down. So we knew that we were being well taken care of, that they were on our side, and they would do everything to make this as quick and painless as possible. And so, as I said, I was off for a couple of weeks, and then I got the letter of no action, and then went back to work. So this makes the second time in my life that I have violated airspace. My first was when I was
This is
a
what
co-pilot.
Mike is talking about?
Yeah, that's exactly what my main man Mike is talking about. Isn't there something you have a history with, Jeff, whether or not maybe you did or maybe did not enter a prohibited area? I'm thinking about Cuba. Yeah, that could be another time in my flying career where I we definitely flew over Cuban airspace, and I don't know if I think I've shared that on the show a few times also. Yes, my nickname was the Cuban Kid in the squadron for a while before everybody forgot about it. That's another story I don't want to go into, but I was just happened to be along for the ride, basically. And that could have been handled much more
That's your
difficult.
story, and you're sticking to it.
Yeah, that's my story.
Real quick for Ernest, with regards to his questions. I looked it up because I wasn't sure what the actual process usually is, like in terms of how things go through like an investigation for violations with those phone numbers. But they have a whole thing about it on the FAA's website that you can read about, which I won't do here, but it basically goes through kind of informal procedures first, which can be just talking to the controller and providing enough information, and everyone says, okay, thanks, we just wanted to clarify things, have a nice day. Apparently there can be settlements that happen without any sort of more like certificate actions or things along those lines, but
money is usually involved.
They do. Yeah. Well,
under
there are
the
civil penalty actions which do involve money, which I had no idea.
I didn't know that.
I'm not sure. I'm sure that's more on the corporate side of thing and not for individual pilots getting phone numbers. That's something different entirely. But mostly certificate actions. If there was something that really was a violation, it can lead to suspension or revocation in some cases if it's very serious.
Yeah. So basically, the FAA is investigating whether or not to take your certificate away.
Ground you.
Which means that if I don't have my airline transport pilot certificate, I ain't going to be working much longer for that airline, and I'm not going to be making money. So I got to figure out something else to do. So it was kind of a stressful period for me, for sure. And again, had no idea. I felt like I was a little close to the boundaries, but I didn't think that we got anywhere like over the line kind of thing in Washington, D.C. But apparently the track showed otherwise. And then there was all these other factors involved. And that's why in I think every situation, the FAA said no action. So that's the happy ending. We're looking on the video of a beautiful puppy, well, not puppy, dog in Captain Nick's
Zeta.
lap. Zeta. She's a beautiful, beautiful dog.
What about the other three? Have they ever had a number?
Yeah, I don't know. Anybody been asked to call? Any of the rest of the panel?
I have not.
Not yet.
Okay, good.
Captain Nick?
No, of course not.
Wait a minute.
Well, you see, we don't.
Sounds a little defensive to me.
We don't have this system. We don't have this system, thank the Lord. Yeah. But, and if I did, it would have been either when I was flying over China or
that's right. We do have some stories on him.
Or possibly Pine Gap.
I thought
I've told most of these stories.
Yeah, that's true.
In Australia with an F-18.
Yeah, but I was always completely exonerated, apart from the odd time when I received public reprimands. But, yeah.
Plural
hey,
reprimands.
We're all human. Come on, we make mistakes, and
indeed,
everyone makes
mistakes. And I'm happy to admit that I'm certainly not perfect, and you could all rest assured that it's safe to fly now. That I am no longer at the controls of an airplane. So, But wouldn't you know it? In the gate area, the gate agent, kind of says, "Oh yes, and Richard Anderson, the CEO, is going to be on your flight back to Atlanta tonight." Oh, okay, all right, yeah. Make him all nice and comfortable.
Like maybe you could have just told me that after we got there.
Yeah, really. Well, you didn't need to tell me that. And then, of course, the new procedure and the guy briefing me, I'm going, what? It's like, and it's horrible weather. You could barely see the taxiways to get out to the runway. I'm thinking, just like, dear Lord, please don't let me do anything wrong here. Anyway.
So
okay.
Would you rather find out about him being on the airplane 15 minutes before you land or 15 minutes after you land?
15 after. I guess. I don't know. It really doesn't matter. I performed the flight the same way.
My boss. I had my boss on the airplane a few times, and he was actually pretty relaxed. Now, come on, girl.
Is that what he said to you, Captain?
Unlike your dog who's...
she got a taste of fame.
Yeah. Has violated a boundary there, I think.
Photobomb.
Right.
Nick, Jeff, why don't we go to number 7 from Tim Q? And then
No, you can't press the keyboard.
7, 8, and 9, I think, and then we'll wrap it up. 7, 8, and 9.
Okay. This one, this piece of feedback is from Tim. By the way, before we move on, thank you, Ernest, for asking the question. And again, as far as general aviation is concerned, I'm not sure if it's much different or extremely different, kind of a process and result from the investigation, that kind of thing. But I would assume that it's very, very similar. So
similar. We don't have a general aviation pilots union to help us out there, but there are resources like AOPA if it's something serious.
Through the whole thing, I never felt like anybody was out to get me. In fact, I felt the opposite, that people were, genuinely concerned about my welfare and making sure that this would go in a good way for myself and my co-pilot. So, yeah, and that's the way it worked out. Okay, we're going to jump to item number 7 from Tim Qualls, and he says, a few episodes back, as well as a few other times in the past, the discussion of flight sim pilots trying to fly a real airplane has come up. While I have to admit, I do imagine that the thought of being in that situation and successfully landing the plane as well as any full-time pilot is a fun fantasy. The truth is that even though some of us sim pilots do go to great lengths to make our sims as realistic as possible, I'm afraid I have to come down on the side of most of us would never be successful at it, even if we are over and over in the sim. The truth is, if I mess up or don't land well in the sim, I can simply reset and have another go at it. While the flying and landing parts may be as realistic as we can possibly make them, performing under a level of stress that would come along with trying to land the real jet is where I think the biggest complicating factor would be. We've all seen professional pilots who make stress-related errors, and these are folks that are trained to perform the correct actions and have done so many, many times, by the way. So while it may be sacrilegious to the sim community to say it, I don't think most of us, if flight sim is our only experience, would be successful. Hopefully, we never have to find out. The second thing he mentions, you all have talked about the airports where ground and tower are on different frequencies. I'm wondering, when you're in a situation like that, did you do anything different? I know I hear about pilots having one frequency active and monitoring another. Is that something that's possible? I imagine it would be a lot of traffic to keep up with. And then the third thing is in one of the most recent episodes, a situation with the therapy dog on a Canadian flight came up. My mind, because it doesn't work in a straight line all the time, began to wander. Do airlines have a policy for what happens if there's an emergency where the slides are being used? I hope the question doesn't sound as flippant as it seems to be. I assume that most airlines do want to get everyone, including service animals, off safely, but it does seem like they could pose an issue with the chutes. Keep up the great podcasts. It's the only one I have to listen to each week. Thanks, Tim. Otherwise, I feel like I've missed hearing from people I enjoy so much. Thanks for all you do for those of us who love aviation from the ground. Tim Qualls. All right, some great questions from Tim.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you think? We've discussed this before on the show. The flight simulator expert thinks that they can just step into the cockpit and land the plane without any issues.
I think he makes a very good point. You may understand the mechanics of flying the airplane, but things have a habit, even with very experienced pilots, of when you make a small mistake and you don't quite pick it up straight away because you're not as familiar as a professional pilot who does it for his job, he'll probably pick up an error very quickly. But if you don't, and the airplane starts doing something very unusual, then it's going to take you a significant time to work that out. And during that period, you could end up just complicating the situation and wrapping up into a really difficult and possibly life-threatening situation. So I think there are lots of factors why it would not be easy for someone who hasn't flown a real airplane, gone through the intensive training that airline pilots do to get just a type rating, let alone get cleared to go on the line and start flying the real aircraft with passengers.
I would say on a...
Hello?
Okay. It's not me frozen. I thought maybe I was frozen.
I think we're still here.
I was going to say on a
It must be
smaller
just Nick.
scale in general aviation, there have been some reasonably high profile instances where non-pilot passengers have at least safely landed smaller aircraft, not airliners
Yeah, that's
or
true.
passenger jets, but it's possible.
Oh, yeah.
And they're just getting real-time information from someone talking to them usually and guiding them on what to do as best as possible.
Good point. And in some cases, there were simple airplanes to
there was
fly,
a King Air
but there
recently,
are
wasn't
also,
there,
yeah,
or
that's what I was going to say. There are
Yeah, it was in
also
Florida.
situations where King Airs, I in fact, if I found myself in one, I'd probably go, what are all these levers and I don't
there's
know
a
how
lot
to
going
do
on
this.
in a King Air cockpit, so
Yeah.
It's possible, but maybe not quite the simple task that some people imagine it to be. If they're,
But we all know, though,
well versed in flights.
we in that very very accurate documentary movie Airplane! ! It's possible. And this guy wasn't. He was actually a pilot in some war, right? And he still had some trouble landing the airplane, but he did it successfully. So he wasn't a sim pilot. He had actual
and followed on to do it successfully on the moon.
That's true. In the next movie, right? Airplane 2. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The sequel.
Yeah. So there you go. Next question he asked about was the different frequencies for ground and tower, which is at most of the airports that we fly in and out of. As far as the practice of listening to the other frequency and the other comm radio at the same time, I've never done that, actually. We usually have our company frequency up on the second radio, VHF2, when we're on the ground, or guard frequency. But I would imagine that you could do that. And as you mentioned, Tim, it could be kind of confusing. And maybe if you turn the volume well down on the non-active frequency to hear what's going on.
That actually is a good trick. There's a couple of situations where I've used monitoring multiple frequencies and having them at not like way down and way loud, but at a tangible different volume helps you discern between the two which one's talking.
Right.
In formation flying, we use it a lot with a discrete frequency versus what we're talking on with ATC.
Mm-hmm.
And I've used it in just by myself on normal days, like I said, aside from monitoring guard, but also if I'm flying into for example, I do angel flights and they require us to be on IFR flight plans. So I have to be talking to approach. But if I'm going somewhere into an untowered airport, let's say, that has noticeable traffic in the pattern or something like that, I'll usually start tuning them in a little ways out just to kind of get a sense of, read the room, see what's who's staying in the pattern, who just came in and landed and stopped. Is there multiple airplanes doing touch and goes, that kind of thing. It's not necessarily for listening for something specific to respond to, but it's kind of background information for where I'm going. So our new setup in the 172 actually can monitor 4 frequencies at once, which is insane. But if you're into that sort of thing.
All right. What about you, Steph? Do you ever do that practice?
Yeah, so along the same lines as what AJ was saying, either discrete frequency to talk to another, if we're flying multiple airplanes for jumpers on the same day, we'll use a discrete frequency to talk to each other. And then usually we have, we're talking to approach, and then also we have our CTAF for local traffic. So sometimes there's 3 frequencies that we're actively switching back and forth between. I've definitely never said something on the wrong frequency before. No. That never happens.
No.
Neither have I. Never once.
Never once.
None of us have.
Wow, that's a great record, Steph.
I know we have a
All the
sterling
time.
record.
It's also noticed neither one of us have ever gotten called,
Yeah.
gotten a phone number to
Never-
call. So
never
I
had
wonder if these
You've
are
never done a PA on the
Definitely.
radio.
Mm-hmm. No.
tried to keep a straight face.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I kind of
so
feel
along
like
those
you're
same
all
lines,
ganging up on
there's-
me here
there's
all of a
a
sudden.
reason why aircraft. I was just gonna say there's a reason why you have more than one, frequently have more than one radio available in the aircraft to tune to at least 2 frequencies.
Yeah, typically in my airline flying, once we were up and away and on our way, to where we're headed, the second radio was the guard, monitoring guard frequency. Guard! Where you can listen to people making meow sounds and doing stuff like guard, and just really stupid juvenile things happening on that.
Chewbacca is my favorite.
Yeah, that's another good one. Not amused at all, but I don't have to worry about it anymore. And then his third question was the therapy dog on the Canadian flight, and asking about. So let's see, they have a situation where they have to do an emergency evacuation, and you have the slides, and those inflatable slides can be sensitive to things like high heel shoes and maybe dog claws. So I don't know. What do you think about that?
It's an interesting one, isn't it? Obviously, the human life has to take priority over animal life, despite how much I would rile against that. And if you're trying to do a proper evacuation, 90 seconds to get a huge airplane emptied of people, anything like a confused or reluctant dog that, just stops in the middle of the aisle with its owner, and the owner's trying to move it on and it won't go. You're really going to have to put it to one side and let everyone else get off. And then if the owner wants to get off, fine. If they want to wrestle the dog off, that is also fine. But you do once you've got everyone else to safety. That would be sort of my feeling. But I don't know if any, I've never heard of any official policy, certainly in my airline.
No,
Nick,
I haven't either.
To ask a question about that, I was thinking about this, small dogs, little dogs that fit in your lap, or you can hold one thing. They can go down in your lap, sure. But if you have a larger service animal, thinking, like seeing eye dogs, stuff like that generally are a little bit bigger animals. If you have a dog that's nervous or hesitant, like you said, and doesn't want to go down, I think the only option would be have the person step aside with them, because I would feel like an uncontrolled, dog would be maybe worse of a risk.
It might well be. And you'd have to let the cabin crew sort of use their judgment, depending on how the situation is unfolding. It's be very hard to write a set of rules for that. But if the owner wasn't prepared to leave the dog, then obviously both stay to one side. But the cabin crew would, I suspect, try to encourage the owner to get off and say, well, we'll look after the dog and we'll bring it with us when we come down, because usually the cabin crew are the last to leave their slide area. They don't go before the passengers have all gone past them. So I think you just have to play it by ear. I don't think you can write you'd have a whole entire manual just about how to deal with every situation the dog might get into.
Well, and our audience is our live audience is amazing. But here, let me put that up there again. Tim Van Ram comes in for the ringer at the end of the show. He says, when my wife takes one of our dogs to the park, the dog loves to go down the slides. She is hot with the kids.
But then the dog might want to come back up the slide to have another go.
Yeah, I think that there was a little typo there. She is a hit with the kids, I think, is what he meant to type. And
right.
That was very helpful. Thank you, Tim, for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As always.
So some dogs love slides. Won't be a problem. There you go.
Yep.
Yeah.
All of the story.
There you go.
So before you take your dog in an airplane, take it to the park, test it on the slides. There you go.
Hey, have you ever, wondered whether or not it was worth your time to listen to our show? Now you know why.
This is information you're not going to get anywhere else.
Yeah, that's so true. So true. And to find more information that you're not going to find anywhere else, head over to airlinepilotguy.com. That's our website. And lots of stuff there. Good stuff. You should check it out if you're wondering what's there. And we're also
all
on
kinds of things.
All kinds of things. Internet, website related stuff. And we're also on the social medias, or social medias. Dr. Steph?
This is where you can find the social things.
Yes.
All the social things. Facebook.com/airlinepilotguy. X.
Yeah.
Maybe no longer formerly known as Twitter, because we all know it's X now. We are at
Do we still have to say
find our individual I feel it just still sounds weird. I don't know. Does anyone else think it just sounds weird? It doesn't sound like an app.
Yeah.
Just me. All right.
Yeah.
Find us there. We're at APG Crew. You can also find that same handle on Instagram, instagram.com/APG Crew. That's where Nick's wonderful show art is each week. And you can play the game of finding the logo and the show number. And also, if you would like to join this lovely live recording or watch previous episodes, the recordings of them, the video ones, you can head to youtube.com/airlinepilotguy/streams. And as always, if that's just not enough, I encourage you to consider Slack.
I mean, how could that not be enough? Oh, wow. I guess because we're so close, it's really loud. Hey, hello. Well, can you tell us about Slack, please?
Okay, but I'm dripping wet.
That's okay. Come on over here. Tell us all about it.
APG listeners, please join us on our Slack team. Slack is a communication, coordination, and sharing platform that works on your mobile, laptop, or browser. On Slack, we share news and ideas, we suggest episode and Plain Tales topics, we plan events and meetups. To get into the Slack team, please email me at slack@airlinepilotguy.com. That's SLACK, Sierra Lima Alpha Charlie Kilo @airlinepilotguy.com. Or send me a tweet with your preferred email address to @Hillel, and I'll send you an invitation. That's Hillel, spelled Hotel India 11 Echo 1, and see you in Slack. I need a towel. I got shampoo in my eyes.
Okay. Just a few minutes. We're almost finished with the show. Yeah, he's always so needy. All right. And also, we'd like to thank our producer, Liz Piper, for all the work that she does behind the scenes.
You're welcome.
And you're awesome. We love you. And what a great way to start off 2025 with being with all my friends. All right. And also, big thanks to our live audience that we've talked about several times on this show. You should really check it out sometime. I think you'll be glad you did. And let's see, AJ, thanks again for coming in with us and lending your expertise and fine commentary. And is there a way for people to...
Both of those sound like a stretch.
Well, of course, everything that we do here is. And this is part of the thing that we do. And let's see, if people wanted to get in touch with you, would you have them copy down a number, or would you have them copy down maybe something else to contact you?
I don't really have much of a way to do that, I guess, but
Okay.
you can always find my YouTube channel. I think you can message me through that or comment on that. It's Alpha Juliet, but not a whole lot on there, so don't get too excited about it being a YouTube channel.
Okay.
But otherwise, I'm sure they can. You guys would pass along a message if
Yeah,
they wanted to
absolutely.
write
You need to
For
contact AJ or give him some kind of information. Just send it to us.
in. Tell me how stupid that last thing I said was.
Oh, hey, I spent the whole show saying stupid things, so it's not a big problem at all. And yeah,
And good luck on your training this week.
yeah,
Thank you.
absolutely.
It's going to be a busy weekend.
All right, and I guess only one more thing to say, really, and that is wishing you all clear skies, unlimited visibility, and tailwinds. Talents, Douglas.
Cheers, y'all.
Bye, buddy.
See you next time.
Yeah, he's up in the sky. It's the airline pilot guy.
Good day.
I used to be such a good pilot till I started APG. I opened doors for little old ladies. I helped them to their seats. Airline pilot guy, I fly America. Oh, airline pilot guy, he can land in heavy fog. I got no friends 'cause I'm always flying. I just don't have the time. But I can land this old plane. I can land it just fine. Airline pilot guy, I fly